call the meeting to order then at 6:04. And I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 3rd, 2015.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from March 3rd, 2015 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
March 1st?
March 3rd.
Oh, 3rd, yeah. Okay, yeah, I did.
Okay. So is that a yes from,
Abstain.
and you abstain? Okay. Motion passes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 9th, 2015.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from March 9th, 2015, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I will abstain.
Motion passes. Additions, deletions, I would like to add under highway bridge standards. I would like to add under correspondence, Bartlett trees. I would like to add under old business, streetlight overcharges. And under new business, town manager committee. Does anyone else have anything that needs to be added or removed? Hearing none. I don't know, who's got the bills? I'm going to help him read them off. Somebody needs to,
Just make a motion to
right.
approve check warrant report and then the number, the amount of.
So you're gonna make a motion
Make a
to
motion
approve
to
that?
approve that we spend $32,231.12.
Check warrant report number.
Check warrant report number
Wait a minute,
31603.
are they in order? That's three. Let's
Yeah,
go in
we'll do
order.
number one first.
Do one first.
They'll all be 316 goes to this.
31601 in the amount of $11,305.63.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of paying payroll warrant 31601 in the amount of $11,305.63 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Can I get that number again?
11,305.63.
Thank you.
Motion for 31602.
Payroll tax.
Payroll tax in the amount of $4,602.27.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of paying warrant number
7 cents.
2, payroll withholding in the amount of $4,602.27 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Next one is check warrant report 31603 for $32,231.12.
Should be general fund.
It's a general fund,
Is
yeah.
that the one with the mileage
It might be. Can you pass down that
Yeah.
one? Yeah, there's a
Love to.
question on that.
And
Is
do we
there,
have signatures
Yeah,
on? I'm just,
Not all.
I think we have a quorum. No, that one we don't have a quorum on.
okay.
Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, now discussion. I'm pretty sure that,
Well, one of my concerns was the
yeah.
mileage that was submitted was actually mileage from back in August. So I think that at some point, we're gonna have to look at there being a date, submit your mileage every 30 days or something, but back in August is a long time, and I'm afraid that at some point, we're gonna go into the wrong fiscal year because of our, the fiscal year starting. If that'd been any later, we'd been in a different year.
Absolutely.
In closing out books. So we can put that somewhere else in our business at some point.
I think that'll actually end up coming up under the, yeah, under old business.
Sign this or not?
Yeah,
How do you figure under old business?
Works well.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
All right, is there any further discussion?
yeah, this is my feeling. At the end of the month, they should be turning them out again, not waiting 6 months or 3 months or anything else. Then we can keep up with it, but if you take something way back in August, it's pretty hard to find out what the hell happened or when.
And as I say, we'll approve it now, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's
for
just
now,
because
but-
it's in that warrant, that it's an issue that we'll take up later, and that's what, we put it on a later agenda, so.
Well, no, it's actually on this agenda if we get into the purchasing policy. Purchasing policy
Oh,
on
okay.
this, and we'll talk about it there. All right, so is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of paying warrant 31603, which is the town general fund, in the amount of $32,231.12, signify by saying aye.
Right.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes.
Next one is check warrant report 31604, highway fund, $6,091.05.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in, oh, do you have something?
Are we gonna discuss that, the door repairs and that sort of thing further on?
No, if you want to talk about it, now would be the time to do it.
Because I thought at one time, and you might be able to refresh me, but I thought that we had, you guys were gonna do oiling of the doors and keeping them all done, and we'd bought a ladder and everything so that you could get up and do the doors, and now, cause that's the warrant that has $10 for a can of
WD, yeah.
WD. And it seems to me as though that door repair bill is pretty excessive. I don't know, $10.
The door quit. We removed it. And, we turned it back, we turned the spring backwards and stuff like that.
Yeah,
With
yeah.
the keyway in it. And we could not get that computer thing on there, the computer stops. It wouldn't work right. It would stop here, stop there. We just couldn't figure it out. So we had the guys come in and we did fix the mechanical part of it. But the mechanical part wasn't, the mechanical part, when I let go, messed up the computer.
So is this guy coming in regular now or what?
No.
Just because, looking at that, it's pretty expensive.
It is. We've had, trouble with the doors, we fixed what we can.
Okay, I just,
Yeah, because they're gonna say, like rollers and stuff, can be easily changed
Yeah.
and stuff, and that's some of the stuff that's in that bill.
Is it? Yeah.
then it'd be built.
And the rollers were not the problem. We oiled the grease, we oiled the rollers, all we do is spray with breakaway into it. They're open wheel, but, I'm sure they went through every door when they were there.
Then $10 can of penetrating oil.
two of them is $20.
Must have done a good job. But yeah, we don't call them unless we can't figure out those computers. Emergency stops and stop lineage switches. Never had an experience with them before.
Okay.
Any further discussion then? I just have a question. Is all the sand now in? You don't have any additional out?
No, we haven't gotten sand.
Okay, so the bills that we had pretty much
Yes.
clean up that, okay. All right, any further discussion?
Hopefully, we have enough classes.
All right. So all those in favor of paying warrant 31604 for the highway fund in the amount of $6,091.05 signify by saying aye.
No,
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Check warrant 31605, equipment fund, $7,266.70.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of paying warrant 31605 for the equipment fund in the amount of $7,266.70 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain.
The motion passes.
31606, general funds for the school. $573,094.25.
And you are phrasing those as a motion, is correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of paying warrant 31606 from the town general fund in the amount of $573,094.25
That's a lot of money.
signify by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We have an issue. Somebody's going to have to vote for this one way or another.
Are we
I have two ayes.
Are we getting our money's worth?
Well, I should have looked at that a little bit closer because we're looking at 2 school payments and I'm not sure how we're catching up. And I guess
No, that's Leland and Gray and the elementary
And the
school.
elementary.
They're split into 2 separate payments.
Okay.
So it's just.
That's what I.
Yeah, it's just one payment.
2, Joe, you got enough money in the pocket, in the account to do that? You think, just barely?
Okay, so should we try it again? Okay. All those in favor of paying warrant 31606 for the town general fund in the amount of $573,
Yes, I would.
$573,094.25 signify by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Don't do that to me.
That's all?
No.
Folks,
Shouldn't be. Or is it?
you want me to make up a few more?
Oh, no, never mind. Okay, she just gave me more than I needed. Okay, that took care of that. So just for the record, the total amount spent in this group of bills was $634,591.02. Just cause.
Are you looking for one?
No.
Okay.
No, she just includes numbers that there's no, never mind. It's a long story.
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, to me, that's helpful, but,
Moving on. Well, yeah, but see,
Yeah.
if we got rid of that, then it gets confusing.
yeah.
Okay? Moving on to the reports, highway. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? Why don't you go first?
Okay, last week we went up to 10 for the setup of the truck controls, light switches, placement of lights and stuff like that. Truck's coming right along. Spoke with Delurious again. I updated him on where the truck is with Tenco because of the trade-in. I feel bad for him. I have not received the financial report from the state, you know, the mileage and a multiplier mileage by and stuff like that.
Just came in.
Just came in? Okay. Because that usually comes in a couple of weeks ago after town meeting. Got the grant application started. This year does not look too good.
Grant for?
Bridge 42. Pending on what the other towns applied for. If they apply, we're not gonna get it. If they don't apply, and they open up a few spots, we might get it.
Now that's the engineering piece of it?
No, that's, the engineering's done on that.
That's already done, okay.
Yeah, we got a grant for the engineering piece, this is the building part of it.
Which bridge is that?
On, West Hill.
That one with Tall Tales?
Huh?
Wasn't this where you get Tall Tales?
Yes.
I know now, 'cause I thought that was done 2 years ago. That's when
We
we,
got the engineer.
That's when
I borrowed plates, bridge plates from the state of Vermont,
yeah, I remember that.
and plated the top of that bridge. And we fixed the guardrails as best we could, and the stuff that was running away. And we got grant applications for the engineers. And they kind of sort of promised verbally we'd get a grant this year.
That's what I was,
But those guys are gone now. Our representative down there, our district, district rep there from the AOT, he's done a different job, and things have changed around and stuff, so it's not gonna work out like it was planned.
But the engineering's done on that,
That's all
right?
done too. So next year we can walk right into it.
How long's the engineering's been done for a year?
No,
Or pretty near.
7 months. Are you thinking of the culvert up on,
No, I was thinking of that bridge, because that's, whatever reason, I thought we had that all ready to. I just,
it's all
my
written?
mind was saying the engineering was completed like a year ago, and we were gonna get that done
They did
this
it
coming
before the end
summer.
of the fiscal year last year,
That's
before
right.
you got off the board.
Yeah.
Or just around that time.
Yeah,
Around
and
that
then I thought that I just, whatever reason, assumed. I thought we were gonna have that done this year. Cause it was kind of like a shoo-in for that grant, I thought.
I did too.
Trouble, half of them times you apply for a grant, they'll cut it out. Yeah, we applied for one for East Hill Bridge up at the Stand Village years ago, and still had nothing ever happened.
But just to help me then, from the time we done that engineering grant to now, there's a different district engineer, different district manager?
Manager and the rep that comes to visit us, the
Yeah,
writer,
yeah.
district writer, yeah.
Okay. 'Cause I didn't know if there's a need for us, meaning the select board and you, to meet with Mark Pickering and Megan Brunk. I know they offer that opportunity, so I didn't know if that's helpful toward us getting a grant and, so there's some seriousness or collaborative work done.
If you guys wanna meet with them, that's fine.
Well, I don't know if it's helpful, I guess that's what I'm
I
asking.
talk with them quite often.
All right.
About some. We did get a grant for the Grafton Road culvert. Mm-hmm. Well, when you were on also.
Yep.
And the engineering for that. So I'm great too. We are #1 on the paving grant this year. So we can get money for paving on that class 2 road.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So I'll get that happening. Somebody on the board, we should get a couple guys, Durban, whoever wants, we should take a ride around sometime. I can bounce stuff off you guys on what I have on my list. But actually, in the state statutes, the select board is supposed to go around the town with the road foreman and cruise on the roads. But I always avoid that.
Yeah, always an avoidance. Always.
It was kind of nice if you meet with the state, the select board or somebody, at least, one of us at least be up to date where we're standing. With what the state's got to say. Or two, or whoever could make it.
If you guys want to meet with them, that's fine with me.
Yeah. We always used to meet in March or April with the state. On the.
Yeah, Paul Gould was good about that, he'd come and visit here and stuff like that. But these new guys, you make an appointment, they don't just call you.
But according to that thing in there, some correspondence there said something about if we wanted to meet with them, we could.
I thought they said they'd like to meet with us.
Yeah,
That's
we'd
what-
like to meet, if we'd like to meet with them, we could, according to the correspondence.
If you guys want to meet with them, say the word.
There is a request for a meeting from Megan at Wyndham Regional Commission to discuss the highway grants program with the select board and the highway foreman at some point. That's kind of sidelined, but that just came through at the end of the week last week.
I guess maybe in the next meeting or something that Mark Pickering or Megan Brunk could come just to meet. And I
Usually
think
come,
sometimes that kind of makes it cohesive.
Well, I'm sure you
they
did.
usually come in the morning and they don't work.
They should give you.
No, see, I didn't even get.
Yeah, let's make an appointment because, remember how they used to give you the numbers to multiply for on a financial
Yep.
report? It's blank, so, we should meet with them so we can get the numbers.
Yeah, find out what's going on.
Yeah, let's meet with them.
I have the old one from 2013, 2014.
That's the financial plan you're looking at?
Yes, with a TA 30,
All right.
TA 60.
So how would you like to do that? Would you like to get together during the day, you're gonna make an appointment with them and meet outside of,
Get
okay?
ahold of me, yeah.
All right. All right, so then you were saying after Tenco?
Once Tenco, I talked to the lawyers about the trade-in.
Okay.
And the 2 grant applications.
Okay.
And I got a copy from Becky for the grant for the bridge on Bridge 42 in West Hill. So I'll finish filling that out. There are some, it's a new application and new paperwork that goes with the grant this year. It's bigger and better. So you guys might, I don't know if you want to look at it, or you'll look at it before I turn it in, of course, because you're gonna have to sign it.
What is it? What's the name of it? I've got enough paper here to check
Certificate of
it.
compliance for town roads and bridge standards.
Yeah, we've all got it.
You got all that? New bridge standards, state of Vermont. Annual financial plan, town highway acknowledgement. PA 60, you just gave me that. But all that has to be filled in before grant applications can be due. They're not due till May 1st anyways, the grant applications. So we have time to do it.
Not much.
So far, mud season's going good.
Back to the bridge standards, the town adopted bridge standards.
Yes.
In 2013, do they need to update that? Or do they just need to sign the form that says we're in compliance?
You probably gotta ask our AOT guys.
Because there's nothing in the letter here.
That says,
Yeah,
I thought it
it just
was,
says
as
we're in
long
compliance
as we
with
have
that.
adopted, I thought it was something like every 3 years to visit our standards to make sure they're up to date, but I don't know that one.
Well, the certification of compliance says, we further certify, and this is typed in for us, but we further certify that our adopted standards do or do not meet or exceed the minimum requirements included in the bridge standards that you signed in 2013. So they either do or they don't. That's all you're signing off on.
Okay.
and the culvert inventory has been done, that's part of the standards there also.
Right.
We did that 2 years ago. I think we're in compliance with that. And also, you wanted me to type up a little thing for the removal of trees on Simpson Brook?
The RFP?
Yeah. If it's below our procurement, if it's below 5,000, we don't put it out for, we don't need to have a whole bid process.
Right.
We just get 3 prices at once, or 3 prices. So I did type something up and I can call 3 contractors. See what they say.
That would be, considering that we're probably past the critical time now, it'd probably be a good idea. I don't think we're gonna have any floods, I hope.
Oh no, there's a lot of stone in it.
Okay, still a lot of snow there. I haven't been up there.
Yeah, but your ground's not froze off right away, so it's gonna suck up a lot of,
But if we get a big rain in the snow, I just worry about that.
So you're gonna just make direct contact with people as opposed to?
Yes.
Okay.
That's not something you can do, right? I mean, I'm a little out of date, so pardon my question.
Down in the brook there, no. I mean, how we got no machinery. I'm not doing it with my knee, I gotta get my knee operated on. I'm not putting it down there. And our equipment's gonna be tough, it'll take us days instead of short periods.
All right, then, well, he's making copies of that. Then the other piece that we kind of left on the burner last year was the bridge plate on Deer Ridge.
Yeah,
And we were looking for concrete blocks,
Yeah.
as well as an RFP to work in the water and a permit to work in the water.
I had a permit to work in the water, I had all that. I didn't, the RFP, Hunt had all the information, Craig, you were supposed to do the RFP for me. I had the permit from the state that I had to close out at the end of the year. And I have a copy of that on my email, and I can just reapply for that again.
Okay, because technically what we got into was the fact that nobody had the concrete blocks.
At that time, no.
So are we ready now to begin to try to
Yeah.
find those concrete blocks?
We can start finding concrete blocks, yes.
Okay, so the RFP then needs to go out on Deer Ridge.
Yes, it does.
All right.
And call them places on prices for concrete blocks. Nobody has a lot of stock to make them on the waste blocks.
are you looking for the square ones, correct? Daily,
Well, the rectangle.
Yeah, I should say rectangle, yeah. 6 by 2 by 2 or something like that, or 30, yeah, 2 by 2. They really did have them last I knew.
Yeah, it's on the side.
So anyway,
They may have changed it.
Because I called all the local.
Craig?
Yes, I'm sorry.
But I had it all approved, Tom Manise wrote it, I wrote it out, Tom Manise approved it. but I have-
we're going to need to get an RFP out on Deer Ridge.
You still have that paperwork I gave you, Mr. Ron?
On the concrete blocks.
Concrete blocks, what we're over down in East Main.
And I have, yeah, and I had a list just on concrete blocks, but I didn't have quantity. Carol's got the big ones. You were looking at something on,
Oh, no, this is for the RFP now.
I don't have anything for an RFP for that. For Deer Ridge? No, you got the steel plate. I thought we were good to go. And you said you had to,
No, we had
the
to-
last time you said you had to talk to Todd again and get a new permit or
So I
something.
did that, but it's,
Okay.
I had to close it up.
Yeah, I just had the hydraulics report, but that was from last spring. And
We'll get an RFP together and get the one coming in.
it was on a
Okay, so are there any other,
piece of paper that said bid come on.
any other updates on the list, on the projects list that you gave us all? I think it was in February.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a lot of projects.
It was.
Yeah. Do I have any updates? If we're gonna pay this year's budget, I gotta get started on that. I gotta know how much money we have in the account. We're paying for this year before the end of June. The paving for the grant, if we get the grant, we have to, that's a 20% match. Even if you have an inventory and stuff, that's a 20% match in the paving grant. So we could just roll ours into next year's paving on the grant, after that.
Did you get the grant for 15 or 16?
15 or 61.
2015 to 2016.
This, before June?
It's 20, I didn't pay this past,
Yeah.
so the grant is for next year, after July 1st.
Oh, after July 1st.
Yeah, 15 to 60, yes.
Did you have any reserve left over from this?
Well, it depends on how that budget ends up. He had money in there
You
this year.
can't spend it for highway other than pavement according to the smart pay. It's earmarked pavement, that's what you're supposed to spend it for.
Yeah, like I said, we'll have to make that decision.
You've got everybody's got a budget report that should be current as of today.
No, I understand, if
You got
you,
retreatment on page 8.
if you got $40,000 left over for pavement and you reserved it, that's what you're supposed to use it on.
Well, it hasn't been reserved yet. It's in an active budget.
No, but I said, did you reserve anything from 14's budget?
No.
You didn't spend it?
There's
No.
something- there's something
Okay.
in reserve, I don't believe.
No.
No, all right then.
So, yeah, the easiest thing
But
to
you
do.
still, in your 15 budget, if you reserve any, you gotta spend it on pavement.
So the smart thing to do then would be to stop in at some point in time and ask for a budget status report from the bookkeeper so you know exactly where you are.
Because I'd like to get that tied into somebody, get our RFP out for that.
Like I said, she should be able to tell you exactly where you are with the highway, and you'll have a rough idea. You did spend a bit of it right before Thanksgiving,
Yes.
so there's a bit of it that's already gone, but you'll have to take a look at it. Other than that, is there anything else that you wanted to deal with?
No.
Did you want to do?
If I can, just 1 second, back to Bridge 42. Becky's gonna do the RFP on that.
Yes.
Okay. I talked to them, it was a couple of months ago. but-
They do a good package on that.
Yeah, there was a question as to whether, and they'll get it submitted so that you can look at it and whatever, but as you're doing, they're gonna get that, they'll piece out.
Who's that doing it?
Beck Engineering's gonna actually do the request for proposal. Hammond did the one for, the Grafton, culvert up here.
Yep.
And Renault was given the contract on that last October or something.
Do
So they
you-
should actually be getting set up and thinking about it pretty quick.
Do you have the excess weight permits?
I do. I do, indeed, I do. All right, I just want to keep going through the contract with it. There's that, there's that. Doing that. And this.
We just do them as a whole? Or do we have to do them?
You don't have to name them out, you just, somebody's gonna have to sign, Kurt has signed in the past, but we do have to, make note on there of the exceptions, and I think Bridge 42 is the only exception for weight limits. Contact the foreman before taking the concrete truck over the up west stuff.
So then why are these on my plate, why aren't they on Kurt's?
Well, I don't know. It's been, well, actually David was signing them, I think, in the past.
Guess who just got elected?
I used to sign them, but the job was taken away.
Well, guess what you just got? Okay.
I mean, you know what exclusions are in there, I don't know what to put in there.
And if you get them back to me, I'll photocopy and mail them back.
Yeah.
What companies they're in.
All right, is there anything else that, for the highway?
Yeah. You can put your bids up for your payment in May, to be done, not to be done till after the 1st of July. And then your chances are you get, but any bids, this is my feeling, any bids that are put out should be addressed to the select board and come to this office.
Well, I think that's true with all of it.
Supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to
Any
be.
bidding process should be, come to this board unopened. We should
Yeah,
open them
unopened,
here.
right.
We should have, it don't matter whether it's paving or whatever it is, but
No, don't make a difference, any bids.
isn't that what's happening?
Then have a certain time they come in
Like
and
the
say that,
afternoon culvert, those guys came here and we opened it.
not, the night of the select board meeting, they'll be open to the public.
It does, the
They're all,
little,
the bid pavers, the pit,
Yeah, the
the
pit
pit
is
clears,
another one.
they all came in here.
Addressed to the select board.
yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they work.
Anyway, according to what the budget status report that was done today, your retreatment, you're looking at 125 is where you are. Well, no, excuse it, I lied. 118, because there's 7,000 there for crack sealing.
But you also, if it can't be done till after 1st July, you've got 2016 pavement money too.
Yeah, well, that was cut way back.
Well, it may be, but you still got that,
So you reserve the one.
all one bid.
So we need to reserve
We
the
can,
one
we can
eighteen.
reserve the 118, but because 15 was cut, 16 was cut way, way
Yeah,
back.
but whatever you got in 16, put them all together,
The more we do together, the better ton.
the better price you're gonna get.
Like I did on Windham Hill, I got 2 grants for that, plus that paving.
Yeah, but, so they say,
That's all the road done.
if it's not gonna be done till after July 1st, which, that would be my preference, that then you'd use the 15 and 16, both budgets for retreatment, all in one contract.
Okay? Thank you very much, Kurt.
Thank you.
Law enforcement,
Yes, 72,016.
16? It would be better to combine them.
Yeah,
we did receive, I don't know if you all saw or got a copy of the sheriff's department report, that there was $13,084 in fines for the month of February.
We don't get all of that.
No, that was the total, but that was what, there any questions about that?
So you're looking at 157 and a quarter hours for that month, correct? Billed 157.25 hours. 72 warnings, this is what you were talking about, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like if you look down through, there's, 10 out of 22 days, they wrote 1 or fewer tickets. And out of those days, if you look, quite a few of them are 8-hour days. Not quite a few, but there's 8.5, 8, 8. There's a lot of days of not doing anything.
Let me look here just a minute, because there are a lot of,
They've been doing extra effort here the last month or so.
Well, if you look at the first 5-6 days here, we've got all 8-hour days. 3 of them they didn't write, they wrote 2 tickets within 3 days. So that's 3 tickets, or 2 tickets in 24 hours.
I don't know what he's reading, because I'm not seeing that.
Which,
Top on the
what-
first page,
First page, first item, 8 hours,
4 tickets.
Right.
Second
4
item,
fine
8
totals,
hours, 2 tickets.
848 warnings,
To arrest.
and 2 arrests. And the next day is 8 hours, 2 fine totals, total, 4 fines total 848, is that what that is?
How do you do 848 warnings?
I don't
No,
know.
I don't know.
No,
That's
you
what
know,
I'm-
tickets, the tickets are 4, fine total is 848, and the warning's 2, arrest 0.
Right, okay.
Oh, okay, I knew, that was, yeah. So there's like 4, 5, 6 stops in an 8-hour period. There, and 1, 2, 3 stops in an 8-hour period.
3, where are you?
I'm just going down through.
It's 8
The
hours.
second
You
one,
got
2
4
fine totals,
You got 4 tickets in 8 hours on the first day, 2 tickets in 8 hours on the second day, 1 ticket in 8 hours on the third day.
Yeah, but you got warnings and stuff where they stop and give them warnings and stuff too.
Okay, they got 2 warnings on the first day, 1 warning on the second day, 0 warnings on the next day, 2 on the next.
yep.
I mean, one day we got 8 hours, we got no tickets, no fines, no warnings, no arrests. Down here at the bottom, it's got 8 hours, no tickets, no fines, no warnings, no arrests. You flick it over, you go here, 3.5 hours, no tickets, no fines, no warnings, no arrests.
Well, but you have to read the narrative. On that last one, on that first page, conducted motor vehicle enforcement on above listed roads, assisted the Vermont State Police with calling Town of Newfane, also assisted Town of Townsend Highway Department, responded to motor vehicle complaint, and then you've got case numbers and whatnot. So they are not going to be pulling people over and giving them tickets when they're doing those other things.
Responded to a VIN verification on Maggie Ladd Road.
Well, so somebody has to do the
Yeah,
VIN
we have to do
verifications.
VINs.
Yep.
Okay, so they drove up, they looked in the window, they read the VIN number and said verified it.
They have to verify it for change of ownership,
I understand, Kathy, but there's 8 hours put in.
not for that one call.
No, but, okay, so there was 2 tickets, 1 warning, a VIN verification,
Why'd you get the 1 warning?
next to where it says warning.
It says, it goes like, let me just. 4 fines for a total $848, warnings 2, arrests 0. 2 fines for a total of 411, see what I'm saying? 2 fines for 411, warnings 1,
Yeah,
arrests
well, you got
0.
800 and something warnings right there,
No, no,
848.
no, this is, they're really too close together.
Oh, I see,
Can't-
yeah.
can't
See what I'm
do
saying?
800 warnings
Yeah.
in it.
Follow me?
all righty.
They're too close, if
Not
that was
much.
spread out,
Yeah.
you'd understand that more.
Well,
But
you
that's-
think 800 warnings, but you think you'd have a lot more
You'd
tickets.
have to come to town meeting like 4 times, 5 times, and yell at everybody. So,
So,
Well, I mean, I don't object to having the sheriff come in and talking about that, it's fine to me.
well, they're good things to study, because in another 60 days anyway, you will be sitting here with the sheriff to discuss a new contract,
That's right.
so.
okay,
Right now, he's still under the old contract, right? Which was over budgeted for.
right, moving on. Town clerk, we all received counter money sheets
Yep.
telling you what she took in. The treasurer's report,
In float fund and the checking account, we have $1,062,037.60.
not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. We got 430 something maybe.
Is there any questions? All right,
That 430 something has got to last until Memorial Day and change.
Well, there should be more coming in.
Right.
But not so much, because a lot of people have already paid the fourth quarter.
Right, this is the end of your third quarter, but basically, I mean, there's a big gap between
There's
now
a
and
big
June
gap
1st.
between now and June
And there are a
1st.
lot of projects that need doing,
Well-
that got bulldozed through the year to end up happening in the spring.
Yep.
Okay, no members of the public? Correspondence, the only thing well, there's two things I've gotten. I received a handwritten note from Maggie Bills, basically resigning from Social Services Committee and as a Valley Cares representative, and saying she wanted to stay on as the weigher of coal, since she's working on a 40-year anniversary in that position. So when we get to the appointments, we'll make sure Maggie gets to stay in her weigher
Well,
of coal
is-
position.
Yeah.
Okay?
Social Services and Valley Cares,
Right.
both, she's retired.
She was-
Well,
Yeah,
actually,
she was on that
didn't
screening
resign,
committee.
She's out. at
She's
the town
out,
meeting,
she
So
just-
I'm not putting in a resignation, she's just not re-upping.
Yep, she's not willing to serve.
All right.
Thank you for all your service, Maggie.
The other one was Bartlett trees. They're reminding us that we need to think about the trees on the common.
Yeah, think about the trees on the common, but that snow was not supposed to have been put on the common with the salt in it. And Kurt knew that. It's too late now, it's happened this year, but that's what we got from Bartlett Tree before, that to keep this sodium off the common. Cause it was going, the soil, they took soil tests and stuff, and it was right in the soil.
That was true. But,
It's happened this year, but we wanna make sure it don't happen again, because if you do, you're gonna be losing what trees you got.
Solve that issue by not buying salt. So,
No, that's what I say, it was not supposed to, the salt from the streets and stuff, yeah, you gotta play in the parking lot, but you don't turn around and when you get through, push it right out onto the common. That was a big thing, and off the road the same way. Or carry it across from the sidewalks on Route 30.
okay. Is there anything else?
And I'm saying, I just to bring up the point that they told us before, how that they took soil
I
samples and
got a letter
everything.
from Bartlett, I don't think I got a.
It's probably not a copy.
I probably didn't make copies for everybody, it's a pretty standard form. You can pass that down if you want, that's the official. But they're looking for, I think it's $610 or somewhere in that range for fertilizing the trees again. There has been discussion over the last 7 or 8 years about planting a new tree out there to take the place of the maple trees that was taken down. As some of the trees are, I guess 2 of the trees are getting fairly mature. And it's nice to have something smaller come along. That having been said, there's no proposal for that in here. But we did talk to Bill Eckhart a number of years ago about maybe putting in an American chestnut or
But,
something of that sort back when.
Okay.
The only thing I have, I probably didn't add it to the agenda, was correspondence from V-Trans with regard to the mileage certificate that I sent in, plus the maps of the ancient roads, and they need verification of the layouts of those ancient roads, basically the vault. We talked about that briefly, I think, at the last meeting, but that was the only way to get it official on camera. We'll have to fix that up.
Is there money in the common fund to cover this now still?
Yeah.
Because it would be an appropriate time to approve this, or at least
And that's,
make a motion.
that's fine, there's some money in the common fund, I can't tell you how much, because I don't get a printout on that, but there is some money in it. No. You don't have the fund balances in.
They plan on doing it in July, so after school is out, because that was an
Right.
issue before. I would make a motion to, contract for Bartlett Trees Services or tree experts for their proposal as written. The money's to come out of the common fund.
Do you have a number on there, I can put in 610 or 6,
Well, there's two,
tree fertilizer,
610 plus 200.
so 810.
610 on one and 200 on the other. The second application is the Bartlett Phosphate 30 to the Norway maple and the 2 sugar maples, the corn and the green.
So it's a total of 810.
Yeah, be total,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed $810.
Is there a second for that?
So I want to see the contract.
Somebody's gonna have to sign it so I can.
Is there any further discussion?
No, if we don't take care of them, we're not gonna have them.
It's true. So, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of approving the motion to contract with Bartlett Tree Company in an amount not to exceed $810 to take care of the
For what?
trees on the common,
After July 1.
after, well, okay.
Well, that's what the contract reads.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Don't let me forget to sign that. Alrighty. Streetlight overcharges. Basically, one of the issues that the last board was looking at was changing the streetlights over to the new, more efficient lights and getting rid of the older ones. But it came to our attention that in fact, we've been overpaying. We were paying for too many lights, more lights than we actually
How
had.
many are they charging you for?
You're gonna ask me.
I think it was
34.
Hang on to the,
34?
okay.
34,
Well, we
have
had 26.
Yeah, we got 26.
So-
I'm in the process, I started working on seeing which one, and I'm gonna do some more right after I leave here, which ones are working and which ones are not working.
The one across from Tita's is on all day long.
I know Rick
24 hours a
Rick
day.
Snows is on.
Rick's, that's what I meant, yeah.
But I understand we only pay a certain,
It's a, right, they guess.
Yeah, pay a certain fee, I realize, but
Right.
we've got some that are not even working, so, and we're still paying for them.
The one on the center of this hill that hasn't been working for almost 10 years, it's all blacked out. Anyway, what Kathy was saying is that they don't have the count right.
Don't forget to include West Townsend.
There's four.
We got them.
Four lights in West
Just
Townsend.
because
We've
we
counted
never
them.
counted before.
We've counted them, taken the poll numbers, yeah.
Yeah, I counted them, there's four lights in West Townsend.
So anyway, because they've been overbilling us for I don't know how many years, for 32 lights, and we only have 26 lights, the question has come up, do we want to go back to Green Mountain Power and ask for a refund? Since we have, in
course.
fact, been paying, well, that's going to be a charge for somebody, our bookkeeper or somebody. Carol Mellis offered to do it, and now that she's not on the board anymore, I'm not sure that would be appropriate for her to do it. But somebody's going to need to sit down and go back through those bills and try to figure out exactly how much they owe us or negotiate with Green Mountain Power to see if we can get a refund.
Should I raise my hand?
you better.
Yeah. I mean, we pay $500-600, $400 to $600 a month for streetlights, depending on the season. And if you're looking at maybe 25% of that, times 12.
Yep.
Times 5 years, 8 years, something. I mean, it is a significant chunk of change.
And unfortunately, the credits that we get from the solar field do not cover the streetlights.
They do not apply at all,
We cannot apply them to the streetlights.
which is,
But, see, some of that happened on that streetlight business, is they had some of them cut out.
Because we counted them, I know, we counted
did
them
this-
before.
We did this when Ally Evans was the chair, because I came in, I was looking at the electric bills, and I was surprised at how high, it was like $700 or $800 back then. And we got into a committee formed, we took a look at the lights, I did a running, I took all the poll numbers, and we ended up with, we got a printout from Green Mountain Power, and there was a discrepancy, because what they said we had, we didn't have, and then we got all the bulb types, whether they were sodium argon, or whether they were mercury vapor or whatever else, and many of them were put in the 70s and were still glowing, and they didn't want to change them out to anything more efficient. And part of the problem was that the shades that are on top of them don't necessarily tend downward. Well, anyway, we did a study, and I think Wyndham Regional got involved, or somebody from volunteer to do a safety look at, these are the intersections you want to protect, and so on and so forth.
They done away with one on
They did one down below,
Depot on the corner out there.
did one out in West Townsend.
They done one over here on Beacon Mountain Road.
We had
They done away.
two at the highway garage that were on all the time, one over the old fuel depot and one somewhere else. But yeah, there were like 4 that went out. A long time ago.
Done away with them, they apparently didn't deduct them off,
Well, Green Mountain Power's the one who took them out. They shittied up the pole and took them down. So they should have taken them off the bill, but if they didn't, then that's obviously.
See, that's what, I think that's where the discrepancy is, because that's, before, when we done that count, we did a count.
Well, we've
Remember?
also had cars or trucks hit poles, knock them down. They put a new pole back up in a hurry to keep the electric lines running, but they don't necessarily put.
Put a light back up,
Right.
especially if it damages it.
But I think if you would call, find out what the
It's
process
not that,
is.
It's just been going around and round and round.
Yeah.
Carol has,
And I will-
for the
I
most,
will-
majority of the year,
I
yeah.
will work with Carol to get this done, but most of the records are in-house, and I'd prefer it stayed
Okay.
to some degree.
Yeah, because I say, I got most of the pole numbers written down now on my
Oh,
card.
we got a map, we got maps. I
But,
mean,
but also, I'm checking and seeing which ones are working, which ones are not working. Cause hey, we're paying for it, it better be working.
So then we wanna pursue.
I
can you
think
remind
we
that?
wanna pursue, and I would, at least that's my feeling, and I would think that Craig would work with Carol, because there's no sense in reinventing
No,
if Carol's
absolutely.
already gone. And
She got most of
if she's willing to
information.
work on a quote-unquote ad hoc committee,
Or is she gonna be working on her lawyer rate, or is she gonna be working on her select board rate?
She's not working on any
They're
rate.
working on their pro bono.
yeah, on a pro bono.
Right. Help the community. In any case, yeah, we can do that. And the other aspect of that was that she was gonna make a recommendation for maybe discontinuing some of those lights, and I think that's where you wanted to have a pretty good look.
They
at
ain't,
which
they ain't,
ones-
they ain't many of them that you, cause they start right with, test glass, the grunions, and it ends right up here by where people are walking by Valley Cares,
Yep.
and it ends right out here before you get out, just as you go around the corner.
Yeah.
Yep.
And all your intersections especially should have a light. You go to any other town or the state and everything, and they've got lights at most every intersection.
Okay? All right.
But I do think if we can get something through efficiency if you want, and go to LEDs or something, it takes a heck of a lot of power.
We actually signed that contract.
Sorry,
Yeah,
didn't
well,
sign.
I say, if we can get something like that, that'll be quite a difference.
But part of the thing of that is that they're looking to basically ramp up and begin to make assessments as to what we've got for lights, how many lumens, what they're gonna have to replace them out with. What they need is an actual count of what
Number
we
of
want
poles.
and what we've got, and that's
Yeah.
where we've come into a bind.
Yeah.
Because what we've got is not what they say we have.
That's what they say you have, right?
Okay.
Okay? So I'm sure you'll be in touch.
Okay, you take this down on Harneyville Hill, there's two lights. Once you call it Billy Roberts, till you get clear out, till you get clear to the top of the hill, the second house. Well, that don't give a heck of a lot if somebody's walking.
Yeah.
All right, next one, moving on into old business. The purchasing policy. And one of the, it was in your folder, the book that you were handed, and it basically details how purchases are supposed to be handled in town, and this is where your other issue will come up, Kit, with your,
Bids.
no,
I'm sorry.
no, it wasn't the bids, it was the, what were you talking about earlier?
Well, we talked
Oh,
about
turning in the mileage
the mileage
certificates, yes.
certificates, but also with, as I look through the highway things, I just get a little bit concerned, it's $20 here, it's $50 there, the small acquisitions, but all at the same time. You know what I mean?
Well, I think one of the things from this is from this batch of pay orders that we just did. And one of the reasons this purchasing policy doesn't work with the $100 limit on it
Yep.
is because they make multiple purchases within the same day for less than $100. So they'll call 2 or 3 times. And by the time you actually get the bills, it adds up to $400 or $500.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's being run around, for lack of a better word. I photocopied a couple here for everybody to see. You'll notice the dates are this same date, but you look at the times are different. I mean, it's a game. And I think that's one of the reasons we need to start being a little bit more forceful with this policy. And then in fact, there is a purchase number assigned to items that need to have a number assigned to them. One of the other issues that we've come up, again, this was in this group of bills that we just paid, it was a bill to Airgas. And we were ordering oxygen, and we paid $61.77 for the oxygen, but then they paid 39% in delivery charges for that oxygen.
So it's over $100.
Yeah, so it's $101, well, $100.01.
Who do you get it from?
Airgas.
They're expensive.
Well, but there again, it's an automatic $20 delivery, it's a fuel surcharge of $10.94, and a hazmat charge of $7.30. And, you know, these are the kinds of things that are costing the town a lot of money that doesn't need to be happening, period.
Because I know a lot of them got, not even buying air gas anymore.
We had lengthy discussion a year ago, a little over, less than a year ago, July, June. I've been advocating this for a number of years. What ended up happening is we did pass the policy. I became their purchasing agent. I've spent a lot of time going around in circles on this. The first thing that happened, and not to blame anybody, but the first thing that happened was they requested and were given, for a couple of reasons, blanket purchase orders. We need a blanket purchase order for Patriot Motors. We need a blanket purchase order for Franklin Auto. We need blanket purchase orders for, well, Sosasimo or Cargill, so that they can do repeat orders for Siemens. Oh, that's fine. But wherever we're buying calcium chloride from, I mean, and Pete's Tire. Well, when we need a tire, we need a tire. You know, we don't want to be calling Craig to get a purchase order for this. What ended up happening is that I think only 3 times over the course of 5 or 6 months did I get to shop for anything a week in advance. The biggest problem is that we're not planning our purchases ahead. We're buying when the salesman walks through the door, or we're identifying the need when we have the need, and then we're just calling it in. So I've been getting calls up until, well, the end of February, we pretty much put a halt to it, but I've been getting calls. I need a purchase order for something, we're gonna go pick it up. I need a purchase order for something, we're gonna have delivered tomorrow. It doesn't do me any good. If I don't have 3 or 4 days, I can't look online. And I've found everything we get from Franklin Auto, I can beat their prices by 10 or 15% and get free freight from somewhere else. It doesn't mean it's worth it for nickel and dime items.
Yeah, but how long is it gonna take to get it? That's another thing.
Well, it depends, and if you need it today, then, well, it's probably good to have a service.
I don't know how this is working, but a lot of times it, like, I need a part, I need it today, I don't need it 2 weeks from now.
And that's
but
what
I don't buy it just because I need it. I mean, just because I want it,
Right.
it's because I need it.
But it would be fine if they were working a budget control and saying, we're gonna hold off until the end of the month, or until Joe gets taxes, we renew our whatever. That isn't happening either. We're buying an oil filter when we need the oil filter because we're deciding to change the oil tomorrow morning. And that, I can buy oil filters cheaper.
That's what I was gonna say, we always kept oil filters on hand.
Well, we don't anymore.
Well, what happens if you have one go to pot when you're plowing? You got nothing to put on.
Is this a
Yeah,
founded
used
order, or
to
is it
buy them
above
at
ground one?
6 or 8 cents a
Somebody
ton.
showed up.
At the garage?
I'm just saying, there are ways of making the system work, but the biggest way is to give some lead time in it. And obviously, if you have emergency purchases, you're gonna make those emergency, but you gotta do it.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta get stuff in, and it's good to have a good working relationship with suppliers. You have to maintain a rapport with the
I don't know
salesman.
who called.
But you don't have to throw $20,000, $30,000
This is at
into
9 o'clock in the
local
morning, this
pockets
is at 10
just to keep that rapport.
So he came back
It's
an
just
hour
too
and
easy to
20
have
minutes
Dave from
Impossible.
Franklin come up with a want book, basically,
nobody saw it.
and walk around and say, oh, I've got this on promotion, you want a case of this? We end up with stuff that we don't need.
So basically, if you run into a situation where a part is necessary immediately to keep a truck on the road, fine. We have an emergency situation. They've got latitude to buy what they need in an emergency situation. This kind of stuff is not an emergency.
Well, I was gonna say, if I was an oil filter, they should know what they take. Hey, you should have 2 on hand, because if something happened to a truck, got in a ditch, and you bump the oil filter, it started leaking, and you're done till you get an oil filter.
So basically, where we're going with this is, we would like, if this board is so inclined, to put some teeth in this policy and say, if an item falls within the confines of this policy over $100, that there has to be a purchase order attached to that particular bill or invoice, in which case, if there is not, it will not be paid. It won't take too long for the vendors to get the message that in fact there are rules in Townsend.
But, see, where they're getting around a lot of that stuff is ordering 2-3 times a day.
So,
Well, that's what, let me just, because I'm trying to clarify here. There are 2 slips here from Franklin Auto on February 4th. Both of them are February 4th. One is at 9:01 in the morning, and they purchased diesel exhaust fluid. Got 12 of them, it's $25.58 a piece. It's $152.64.
so that automatically hit the policy, it's over $100.
But nobody has signed for it.
Right.
All right, no, there's no signature.
It was delivered.
But, just a minute, the employee that ordered it is Kyle. So I don't know who Kyle is.
That's right, the salesman?
What did you do?
No, it says employee, Kyle.
Yeah, but that might be the sales employee.
Or, yeah, who took the phone call?
Well, up here, the employee is Richard. This is at 10:20 on the same day. Another salesman, same salesman or whatever, came, Napa, once again, come to the garage, if I'm understanding this billing right, and they bought Rotella antifreeze for $169.90 and a bulb for $11.49. That's an hour and 20 minutes difference. So does Napa have salespeople coming to your place every hour, number one?
I suspect.
Nobody signed for it. The employee was Richard, whoever that is. And I don't know, I guess when I look at these, I don't know who's at the garage ordering who's at the town garage ordering these things, and how do we, why is it so, I'm a little surprised, number one, that Napa sends a salesman everywhere, every hour, or hour and a half. Well, that's what it is.
Our salesman is Dave. These were call-ins,
Yeah,
and
phone
I'm certain that these were call-ins that happened.
Answered
But on
by
our purchase,
Kyle and answered by Richard.
on our purchase order form, there is a requested buy, and there is a needed buy. I mean, when do you need this? Who's ordering it? Is it Bob? Is it Kurt? Is it Mike Billis? Is it whoever? Who's making the request? And when do you need it by? And what are the parameters of the specs that you need? I just need a part number.
I used to, when I was up there, I had a book, it happened to be Chanel that was the one that came around. But also when I got the slip, I wrote right on the slip what it was for.
What truck it was for, everything you had on the slip.
Yeah, I know, but I always took my slips and they matched up with the statement.
Well, again, that's not, I know what he's digging for.
Do you?
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying.
One of the things that's going on here as well is we have a rough idea of where the budgets on individual trucks are. So this is the writing of the foreman. Says it was for truck T2.
Right.
And the wheel size is not correct for that truck. So we're also moving expenses to an area where there's still budgetary funds available.
That's for T1.
So in other words, right, Kurt said this was for T2. In fact, it says right on the slip it's for T1, and the wheel size for T2 and T1 are not the same size.
T2 is the Ford.
So this is the
Yeah,
kind of
T2
stuff
is
we're
the
getting
Ford.
into. And I think we need to put some teeth into this policy.
Yeah, just like-
Yeah, let me get it so it doesn't go popping.
Yeah, because you run into, if T1 needs tires, regardless of what he writes down there, T1 still needs tires, and we need to get tires. If you need a new battery for the truck, you need a new battery for the truck.
But when you
So if
charge-
the bookkeeping is off,
But when you charge it out as an equipment expense, you want to know, the Sterling has been sold since October to New York. And I'd like to know how much we actually put into that Sterling while we're carrying it through the winter, waiting for our new truck to arrive. How much money are we putting into the repairs? But if those repairs are being shifted to other vehicles, then you really
Don't
don't
know.
have knowledge at the end.
And that's what he's doing.
When you say the tire chains are all equipment, then it doesn't get allocated.
right.
No. But who wrote T2 on here?
Kurt,
Because
He
he
ain't
has,
paying attention.
he has to tell me so that I can put that number that you see on the bottom there, That's the account number, not the pink slip.
Yeah,
But the, well, actually, make it real slip here. I put that number on there that charges it to T2, but actually I charge it to T1 because it doesn't belong on T2.
yeah, 'cause they're gonna take, T2 doesn't take that size tire.
I wouldn't think.
We should get out the truck logs and see what the truck logs.
Well, that's what I'm saying, we need to do logs and we need to make sure, I think
That's
we
right, we
need to
don't have a
talk
truck log.
to Kurt, we gotta tighten up on him as well as purchase orders, because purchase orders aren't gonna address this issue.
No, I agree.
Purchase orders aren't gonna address that issue
He's
at all.
got-
I mean, I got them all screwed up.
That's okay. I mean, the nice thing about it is as Craig comes in, as these bills are submitted to him and the invoices, you know, he's assigning the number, the line number to him, so he's catching a lot of these type of things. And I think with the purchasing system, you could start to catch some of.
Well, I
of the-
wouldn't have to go through each invoice and read the fine print.
Right.
If we ordered 4 plow blades and we got 12, then that just flags if I've got a purchase order that I'm comparing it to. You going there? No.
I'm gonna leave that one alone, not on camera.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you ordered 4 and you got 12, hey, somebody,
There's some issues somewhere, but I think we'll have to address them somewhere
Yeah.
else.
But, you know, as far as the purchasing policy, I would really like to see us make it a policy of this board that we expect to see a purchase order number attached to every one of these invoices when they come to the table for us, to know that somebody has looked over it.
I mean, it takes, and I don't want to keep this, Kathy and I end up spending 2 hours, 3 hours every Saturday morning going through this. It shouldn't take members of the select board more than 20 minutes to go through these, knowing that they've been vetted. But somebody shouldn't be spending that much time reading every one of these to find out which tires did we put, which truck did we put the damn
We
tires?
shouldn't, and that, we need to address that with.
And if you find one thing wrong, then you check other things, and then you see price discrepancies or whatever, and it just makes you dig deeper, and then you have
Find more,
suspicions and
yeah,
what,
yeah,
it just,
no, you should.
well, 3.5 hours for
But
Saturday, 3 hours on Saturday.
The $100 limit, I'm not sure, because, boy, you don't buy much for $100. So, if it's in the middle of the night, suppose that they need a new battery,
You put an E on it, it's an emergency, and then you'll come to the board and explain that you bought a $200 battery because you had to have one. That's fine, that's what emergency purchases are all about.
Right.
You need something
Yeah.
today, you get it today. You need somebody from Tenco to come in and do repairs or whatever on a backhoe that's down, you have them come in. There's no way around that, you're not gonna shop.
or on the roller doors. or
But if you're
whatever.
gonna buy a case of 12 diesel exhaust fluid additive, you know you're gonna use it. You can buy that a month in advance. You can shop that out, you can get it on promo, you can go to Sanel's, you can go to Bond, you can go to Napa, you can wheel and deal a little bit and get your best price and put it on the shelf. You know you're gonna use it up. You don't buy it today for tomorrow's
Right,
delivery.
no,
Because you
I
ran
agree with
out.
that, yeah.
You don't run out.
Yeah, no, you gotta make sure you got it ahead of time, because you never know how much you're gonna pay.
We run out of
Especially in winter.
diesel.
Well,
We ran out of diesel
Essentially,
fuel.
we've already adopted it, we just never put any teeth in it. In other words, the board's never stood up and say, this is the way it's going to be.
but you've already adopted the policy. I mean, the policy is.
We've already adopted the purchasing policy.
Well, and part of the problem is the only thing that you see in advance are the bids when you sit at a table and open the envelopes. Everything else is already done. You owe these people money. And if you say no,
Well, that's what I was saying before.
after the fact,
That's
it's
what
a
I was saying
problem.
earlier. I mean, here we're sitting here signing,
Something's not gonna
we're
stop.
signing pay orders that have already been paid, or you don't have any say in, I mean, you just gotta sign it and say, yeah, it's been
Well, the
paid.
payroll is always checked before it
Yeah,
gets
yeah.
processed in. That's another 2 or 3 hours on a weekend, but it is always checked. And again, that's with a calculator and
So help me understand what we gotta do here. If you've already adopted the goods and services purchase policy, what do you mean by put teeth in it? They're gonna do it or they're not gonna do it?
Well, that's what I mean. Basically, when Kurt started to push back, when the highway foreman started to push back and not wanting to get the purchase orders, et cetera, the previous board, as it stood, did not have the wherewithal to basically stand up and say, we're not gonna pay these.
Who would you like to have talk to on this board?
I don't care who talks to him, but I do think
That'd
we
be
need
done as a
to,
board.
Yeah.
we need to decide, I agree. We need to decide that we're going to stick to our guns.
You just have to reinstate the policy.
If we're gonna.
But if you reinstate it, you gotta back it up next time.
Exactly. Next 2 weeks from now, when we have bills that don't have purchase orders with them. And then every one of those are gonna get stacked on the end of the table and say, do not pay.
Until you find the purchase order number.
Well, until such time as he either justifies what the expense was for, or why he did not go through the system and get a purchase order number for it in
So
the
do you
first
have
place.
purchase orders printed out?
Yeah, Craig has them. He's got a whole book full of them.
Now, is this purchase order, is that for everybody all the way around?
It's supposed to be, but again, with that $100 limit, very few people in the building
But
spend that
needs to
money.
be-
It cannot apply to, the fire department has its own
Right.
autonomous structure, the library
Yep.
as well, the cemetery.
Yep.
They will buy what they need when they want to. It'd be nice if they worked with the system.
Well-
But it does apply to the municipal town hall, or should. Most of the expenses are incidental. But we don't buy paper towels from Keene Industrial anymore. We get them directly from Walmart with free shipping at half the price.
Yep.
Because we do. It's a better product.
But like the fire department, we don't store a lot of parts in there, we don't. We
No, but that's a
get
different.
what we need. So I think we need it, but that's it.
Yeah, oh,
But still, I think I've got it to them, they have to turn the slip in and say what it's for.
I'm happy to stand behind if it is not a purchase order.
If it doesn't go through the system, those orders, they will be withheld. Payment will be withheld until such time as they go through the
I'm
proper
agreeable
channels.
to that, I don't know, but
But I mean,
If it's there, it should be
you gotta do it.
you passed the order, and that's what I was handed from the highway department the next day, essentially, is
That's
that's
what-
what they wanted.
That was, after we put that policy into place, they want a blanket PO here,
No,
and want a blanket PO here.
no,
For all charges
See,
to that vehicle.
this is what we got into almost immediately.
okay.
There should be a duplicate order so that one of them,
Well, that was a request, those were all denied, but I'm saying, this
yeah,
is
no, but what I'm saying, it should be a duplicate, so you've got one, as well as they have one to purchase your thing.
Yeah, they get the number, needless to say, yeah. So each truck, they wanted a purchase order for each truck,
And that was denied, correct?
yes.
Right. So.
I mean,
they
for the
need-
most part, but it morphs into, you know what I mean? It fell apart rather quick.
So were these just written on denied and returned to
Well,
them?
these were requests from our highway commissioner who sat at the table and
Well-
actually made up that form, that basically what they wanted was all blankets, and they just wanted a purchase order number stamp on there, so when they call it in, they could give a number. And we basically turned that down. Now, some things have fit into the system, and a lot of it's just fallen apart, because there was no enforcement mechanism.
Each person should be in a different, each
Well,
person
I mean,
should be a different number.
there are repeat purchases. Wyndham Solid Waste Management has one number. We pay them quarterly, and it's no big
But-
deal.
But I went through that same, when I worked for Sosasmo, we had to go to the office and get a purchase order, whatever we had to buy, and they gave us a copy to take and turn into, I think, Zagway or
Well,
Bells or anybody.
We made out a purchase order for salt from Cargill and for
Right, you
sand
did.
from Sosasmo, and the board, when they gave the one for Cargill salt, said not to exceed 500 tons. So when we were getting close, I let Kathy know. We had weather, we canceled the meeting, and by the time we came to the meeting the next week, we were way over that 500. And by the time they actually saw the highway department, we were over again, and then the board put a
Stop to it.
stop to it.
So, let me just, again, just because I gotta, at this point, we've always had a board member be highway commissioner.
Or liaison.
Or whatever you want. We don't have that now. Because, for example, we only, as a board, we meet every 2 weeks, or let's say every 2 weeks. So if something happens tomorrow and Kurt hands in a purchase order, he has to have somebody at least review that and sign it. I don't think that you can expect him to wait 2 weeks before we approve that.
No, but
Right.
that's been Craig's position,
Okay.
is to either shop it or to assign it a number.
And the only thing that I
Not
can
to
really
approve it,
do
but
on
to-
that is use my best judgment, but at least I can compare the purchase order number to the packing slip receipt that comes in, make sure that the prices agree, and a lot of times they don't. You know, it's not just we'll get charged tax, but there'll be a delivery charge on top of something. You know, or there'll be a mileage charge or a fuel surcharge or something. The person that calls it in needs to know what the bottom line price is gonna be, and that's why I've wanted to call these things in. What I was asking for when we set this up was to get a requisition from the highway department every day. Basically, I need this next Monday or next
Okay.
Wednesday or
Okay.
something. And I'll go ahead and make the phone calls. I'll do a little bit of shopping, make the phone calls. It's not always gonna be best price. It might be best for delivery or something else. But through the course of time, we ought to be able to save 10 or 15% on our purchases
Or more.
as we develop vendors and charge accounts and all of that. And if nothing else, it keeps the ones we are using honest, because they do know.
Well, and that's
the
kind of what I was asking, who's gonna oversee this? So we're gonna kind of.
But at
toss
least
it
the
in your
board
lap.
knows, when you're looking through these receipts, that those tires that are charged out $1,100 or $1,200 are on the right truck.
Yep.
And that somebody other than, it wasn't just called in on the spur of the
No,
moment.
I'm
but that it was-
happy with all that. I think that needs to happen. I just wanted to be clear in my mind how that was gonna happen, who's gonna be responsible. So when we sit here tonight and I'm comparing a purchase order with a bill, that I got somebody to talk to about it.
Well, and that's,
Right?
and
Somebody,
anything.
that's
believe
why
me,
I'm saying,
anything-
whether it's a liaison or.
Anything
Kurt or
interesting,
whoever.
anything interesting
And-
that flags or comes to question in my mind, I will bring it to
I
somebody
mean, I
else.
love to throw it in your lap. I think it's great.
It's been there, it just hasn't
Should
been
give
working.
you something to
It's
do.
It just hasn't been enforceable at this point.
Well,
So as long as
So-
we're in agreement that we're going to stick to the policy that, as it was written, and from here on out, that there's going to be a purchase order attached to items over $100, number one, and number two, that in fact this game that's being played of calling in multiple charges on one day is going to automatically put it in that same grain. If you've got to call Franklin Auto 3 times in one day to get parts, you can bloody well be assured it's going to be over $100, and it needs to come to Greg.
and I just want to make sure that we all understand that this policy has already been adopted. You just haven't stood behind it.
Right.
And so, as a board, we either have to say, yes, tonight we're gonna stand behind it, or we're gonna do away with the policy.
Exactly.
There ain't no need of having a policy that you're not gonna stand up and enforce, right? I mean,
Well, and I don't have the time to put the
That's
effort into
worse.
something that isn't gonna.
That's right,
do any
I
good.
mean, that's
It just-
worse than not having any policy at all.
Okay? So are we all in agreement, or do we want to vote on it, or what do we want to do?
What happens if they can't get a hold of Craig and they need to pack because of a snowstorm or something?
Well, again, that would be an emergency purchase.
Okay.
And they're in that
I
policy.
just wanna get it clear in my mind.
Yeah, in that policy, there is a whole emergency section, what to do if there is, you can't wait 24 hours
No, no.
to get something.
That's what I was getting at,
Yeah.
because I've seen times that 3 o'clock in the morning, I might need a pack, and,
Right.
soon as the store's open, I made sure I got it ordered or
Well-
had it picked up or something.
And this is a little bit rhetorical, but I would also like to do an inventory of what we've got. We've got stuff that's been up there for years. The cases have never been opened on. We paid the bills. We bought them from wherever. We do have stuff up there. Some of that stuff needs to go on Craigslist and be gotten rid of. We sold the truck in 2002 and we still have parts for it, kind of thing. We do have back stock, so to speak. But we need an inventory of what we've got, and we need to know what we can buy as a commodity in advance, like oil filters, like air filters, like Gates fittings for hydraulic hoses that we seem to eat up left and right, over and over and over again, ordering 2 a week, 2 a week, 2 a week, that kind of thing. You can put 6 on the shelf, and when you get down to 2 or 3, you order 2 more.
But on that, like hydraulic hoses, unless they got the replaceable ends, there's no sense.
We spent $6,000 on a hydraulic hose maker. A hydraulic
They
hose
don't
kit.
use it.
Because we ordered the wrong fittings. We go to D&G to have it made.
Because they don't use, you bought a hydraulic
So why
hose
do they buy the
maker and they
fittings?
won't use it.
Huh?
So if they're going to D&G, then why are they buying the fittings?
Well, because they have this machine and they've got the hose, they have to replace some up there. They can use the machine to replace them, but the fittings in the case that we bought, they're, apparently, I guess Joe was telling me, they aren't ones that we use.
They break.
They're metric, or they're
Well, I
cheap.
understand they break, but why would you, if you have a hose machine and you have hose and you're buying fittings, why would you go to Dan's for anything?
Because it's easier.
Well, no, they run out of fittings. After they make a hose, put it on, head out, they blow it. Then what do you do? Go to Dan's.
Well, the fittings are gonna be wrong, and there's no doubt about that.
Well, so that's part, once again, part of Kurt's responsibility to make sure, or the foreman's responsibility to make sure that we've got the right stock. I mean,
And the easiest thing to do is pick up the phone and call Franklin Auto and have a couple sent up on the truck. And I do understand that, But if we're gonna go through 2 dozen.
but you know you're gonna go through 2 dozen in the winter,
Right.
why don't you get the Best Buy and order 2 dozen, so you got them in stock?
But where did they buy the hose thing from?
They got the whole thing from Sunel.
I'm pretty sure that there's a hose
Well, if them
company
fittings
around
aren't right, they
that
should have
comes
sent the
around.
sucker back.
I'm pretty sure there's a
No, I
hose
mean-
company that'll come around and actually look at your inventory and replace what you need.
That would be nice to be
Well, I mean,
efficient.
that's what big,
It's
they
like
don't
nuts and
call.
bolts from Northeast Fast.
Exactly,
They come
they'll
in.
come, they'll do an inventory of
Well-
what you have and.
Okay, so,
Anyway.
anyway, because we're going way off the
Yeah.
left
Yeah.
field here. So the purchasing policy, we were all in agreement that we're basically going to stick by what has been approved. Correct?
I am.
Yes.
Okay. Now, moving on. The town manager committee, one of the things the last board did in the report was make mention of the fact we would like to have a study done to explore the possibility of having a town manager or a town administrator, whatever you want to call it. And that was in the report that went to the people at town meeting. I have heard from Hetty Harris, she's offered to be on that committee, and I know a couple of other people have made mention of the fact they would like to serve on the committee. So I'd like to get this board's opinion as to whether or not we move forward with that, and if so, what kind of charge there would be to the committee. What do we want from them?
Personally, I think that we need one. That's been my drum for a number of years, I've said that. I think that as the world continues to grow and turn, you need some professional, I don't know the right language,
Help.
but somebody here in an office that has the ability to talk to Montpelier, has the ability and has the authority to say, yes, you can do this, no, you can't, this is, or contact people, or say, yeah, meet with Mark Pickering in Highway and see, I think we really need that. And I think they call him a town manager, that's what I think.
Well, they actually go both ways. Some of the towns do have town administrators.
Well, however,
So,
I don't care what they call them, but I think that and I've said that for a number of years, that's where I stand. And I think if you're gonna have a committee to do that, we charge the committee to develop a, job position, not just a title, but
Description.
the
job description, and then review it with the select board.
well, the description and the types of salaries that are paid locally. I mean,
Yep.
there's few towns our size that can be tapped for
Yep.
information
Yep.
as to what they pay their town manager and or administrator, to give us a rough idea. And we can look at some of the job descriptions from those towns to get a rough idea of what those people do.
And I think if the committee's willing to do that, that's what I would do, but anybody else can speak.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think come up with the job description and the salary, but also exactly whether we keep the select board at 5 or we reduce it, since there is a town manager, you still need an odd quorum to kind of oversee what they do.
Well,
And
good.
then possibly would that manager also take the role of the emergency management director, because they're kind of I mean, that's kind of a fence where, I'm not trying to get out of it, I mean, I am.
No,
but they're not.
Yes, you are trying to get out.
Watch him squirm.
It's gonna be a little while anyhow, so.
Knew there was something in there.
Yeah, that was coming out of left field.
And they're gonna
Well-
have, there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah, and my response to that would be, that would kind of be up to the committee, because
Right.
when they get a job description that they think's viable, we'll meet with them as a board and review it and say, oh, this is a good idea, and that's not, that's what I would think.
Yeah.
And I mean, the
Or
plan,
you can even talk with the committee members with your ideas, right? I mean,
the plan was to have something Joe enough to present at town meeting next year for the voters to consider. Where we have the information necessary to be able to say, we think this is a good idea and this is how we'd like to go forward. And we studied it and found out it's not gonna work for Townsend. So, can you, out of what was just said, Craig, can you make a charge for the committee?
Well, you have job description with salaries to determine as to whether you want a town administrator or a town manager. And a lot of that is available online or through the LCT. You can get small town comparatives.
Right.
You can do national averages. You can get New England region. You can look at, I mean, some are
but that's up to the
serious
committee.
jobs.
I mean,
That we have to-
In
yeah.
Vermont, the general rule is that the manager will generally work, you still have a select board.
Yes, you do.
And you sit in a higher supreme position of overseeing the manager then, instead of getting down into,
The nitty gritty.
well, and there's a lot of nitty gritty lately.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
is.
So who wants to be on the committee?
Like I said, Hetty has volunteered. John Evans has spoken to me multiple times about it. I don't know, I think somebody from, not necessarily the select board, but somebody that's associated with the select board ought to participate. Are you pointing at poor Joe? I was pointing at you.
Joe was raising his hand.
I
Yeah,
mean,
but like a town manager, there's a lot different duties in an administrative assistant.
oh, absolutely. But Craig has also found himself in the position of having to act in some ways as a town manager. He's boots on the ground.
Well, even
When the
now-
lawyer calls,
Even now, that's right.
yeah, when the lawyer calls, it's Craig that fields the phone calls.
I have a certain level of responsibility, but I have absolutely
No
no
authority.
authority. And that's the difference.
That's the difference, and
Well,
that's
no,
what's
it's-
missing.
I'm not saying I'm pre-qualified for the position. I know the territory pretty well because I've covered all the little venues, at least to some degree. That having been said, I don't have the ability to make decisions without going down and visiting Kit or calling Kathy or having you guys, basically have an emergency meeting or special meeting, workshop, talk about it, that kind of thing.
But,
And with regard to a purchasing policy, it's a great idea. I've been pushing it ever since, well, even before Michael Charles was sitting here. But basically, trying to get that through the system. We finally got it through the system. But it fell apart, in part because I couldn't tell Kurt, no.
right.
I mean, and I'm not picking on Kurt. I mean, I
No.
think he's trying to do what he
Whoever,
needs
it
to
don't make a
do.
difference who it is.
Well,
You know, anybody that works for the town, any department or anything, then if they're gonna pursue
I mean, I couldn't
it.
stop myself from buying.
I-
And she gave me a credit card.
Again, at the risk of overloading the plate, which is already overloaded, is taking part in that committee something that you'd be interested and willing to do? Only because you have the knowledge of, you have more knowledge of what's happening.
Yeah, I would certainly, if they wanted me to, or if you wanted me to, I'd certainly
Partake,
sit in with them. It depends on who's on it and what they want to do. But in terms of you guys defining what is charged, I think a lot of that information is readily available.
Yep.
I think they need to customize it for this town, because I honestly
And that's the
don't,
part that you.
I honestly don't feel that you can put an ad, and I'm just making this up, but I don't think you can put an ad in the Boston Globe and hire somebody from out of state to come into town and basically run the town and survive for 3 months or 6 months.
Okay.
I think somebody needs to know the territory.
So here's my suggestion, for what it's worth. Hetty's willing to head up the chair, head up the committee.
No, she just said she'd
Well,
want to
she
serve.
would participate.
she'd participate on the committee, John Evans will, and I would, if we can ask TV Land or post that anybody interested in serving on this committee, please either send us a letter or notification or come to the next select board meeting and at that meeting, we will appoint.
Okay.
But at least it gives anybody else out here in Townsend that may be interested in giving us a hand in this respect, please let us know, and at the next meeting, we will appoint a committee.
I think they're looking at the 6th, I think they're trying to
The
decide
next
what the
meeting
date
is
is.
on the 6th of April. We can get vacancy, not on that vacancy. We can get
But
requests.
Notices
Posted,
posted.
At
notices
least that
posted.
lets everybody know.
Not only get the town manager, look, see what administrative assistant could do for her. If they could do as much, enough,
You mean a town administrator?
yeah. Somebody like that, not necessarily town manager, you know,
Has an
have them look at,
administrator position.
Yeah, well, just understanding the differences between the two. You know, that's something the committee can do, is look
yeah,
at
no,
it.
that's what I say, have the
Differences,
committee
Yep,
check into both, not
Yep.
just strictly one.
yep. You know, and give us a rough idea of what kind of cost we're looking for, or looking at. All right, so we'll do that at the next meeting then, if you
I'll
could
work
get some,
something up and
notices
run it past you.
posted.
We'll get
All
some
right.
notices out.
thank you. Then moving on to new business.
Excuse me, Kit had to tack onto it wasn't really purchasing policy. He did an add-on with regard
Oh,
to the
the
submission
the
of
submission of
bills
the
and-
sheets, the
If you have a bill
mileage.
for the town, or if you have a mileage or.
Well, I don't know if you can, what policy or anything that fits into, and you probably will need to put it, I don't necessarily think it's on a purchase order, but we need to adopt a policy somehow in a time-related manner of submitting not just mileage, but timesheets and who's done what, that sort of thing.
If it's a real bill, if you buy
See the
something at
colors?
Staples and Staples is charging the town, it will get paid within 22, 23 days because it's coming from Staples. If you're looking for reimbursements, because you shelled money out of pocket for postage or something like that, then I think you can set a limit. It should go in the new personnel policy when the policy comes out, but it's a personnel matter. That if you're requesting reimbursement from the bursar, from the treasurer, you need to basically put a warrant in whatever time frame you want, 3 to 6 weeks or something, but it needs to be not only within the quarter, but it should be within a period of time.
The only thing I think I will say to that, though, is we seriously have walked this line with elected officials, and it gets very, very difficult to, in fact, enforce any kind of labor
Mandates, I mean.
yeah, well, mandates
constraints or whatever.
when it comes to elected officials. We found that out the hard way.
But I think.
Yeah, but I think mileage and stuff, I think we can say,
I think the way it works, is people are entitled to pay for work. I don't think when a lister, an auditor, any elected official submits a form, Joe Dano, as a tax collector, submits a form and says, I work 10 hours, I want to get paid for 10 hours. I think that's a demand. It's not anything that you guys can do anything about unless they miscalculated the time. But when you're asking for reimbursement for something, that's
Falls under
different.
different
Because
budget.
as the purchasing agency, I can go out and buy it on the company card and get it billed directly here. But if you're gonna put out your money and buy something for the town,
And again, it's in the spirit of cooperating between departments. I can't imagine why you wouldn't wanna cooperate and work with inter-department pieces.
same way
That's
with,
it.
with
I know.
with mileage.
I just don't understand why.
I know.
I just don't.
I
I
mean-
just don't understand why.
Mileage, it's something that happened in October or something, that should have been already, as far as my concern, is it should have been taken care of.
Well, this was last July. I mean, I
Every
don't
month,
understand
every
why.
month, if they got mileage, then
That's not,
Well, just to put it into perspective, there were also other requests for reimbursement that were submitted along with that. I took it out of the pile that had already been paid. I think there were 3. Was there 3 receipts?
I'm sorry,
3 receipts in that piece, request for reimbursement that had already been paid. The invoices were already, remember, because so much.
from the
money.
individual who put it in there,
Yes.
because there was a last year's for comparatives?
Well, but no, but because we had already paid them.
Yeah, no, that happened.
And that happened in this particular one. They were submitted for the second
I
time.
I don't know, but again, we're not talking about time worked,
Right.
No, but that's what elected officials are entitled to, is the time work.
time worked.
And there are some associated expenses, because, well, obviously, everybody's got it, and you do get paid your mileage, but I think that there can be something in the personnel policy with regard to submissions in a timely fashion. And I think that.
I think so too.
I think the board can set a restraint, a 30-day
And
restraint.
if you're concerned about that, just check with Vermont Leagues, they'll tell you.
Labor attorney's real good at talking to us too.
Yep.
Anyway, so moving on, this is something that has been ongoing. This might have been a carryover that I inherited from you.
Good.
That I'm gonna throw back at you again. Okay, catch.
Bye.
Do you remember the whole discussion about the maps? And the
Oh, my
tax
God,
maps?
yes,
Yeah, I'm
we-
sorry. Anyway, we finally got something. Nobody liked them.
That's right.
And we made the request that in fact, they be revised. The town clerk did and the listers did. There was a revision that did come out. They went to the lister's office. The listers still were not happy with them. And on, I believe it's the beginning of last week, the end of last week, Doshie Kramer brought in a revised tax map and asked Anita if she had received one, and she said no. And technically what this was a revision that was due the town clerk's office back from the first revision, okay? Okay, and he submitted a bill.
For the revision.
For the revision, yes. Now, there was a lot of problem with the revision because nobody would talk to Doshie Kramer. Nobody could get their story straight as to what they wanted these maps to look like. And it went in a circle for 6 months.
Hadn't they done the maps last time, Doshie Kramer?
Yes, but they were changed. They were changed drastically. And nobody could work with them in the format that they came back in.
All right, so.
How come
what-
they changed them so drastically?
Why?
What they did,
Who they?
they being Doshie Kramer,
Okay.
the state, I'm sure you're aware now, contiguous parcels are now under one parcel, they're considered one parcel by the state.
Yeah.
So what they did is they took all of the individual parcel numbers out of the lands, and anything that was contiguous with one owner, they drew an arrow between them. But they no longer had the separate parcel numbers, so that you couldn't follow it back through. So if you purchased a piece of property, it would have a separate number from your main parcel. Well, suddenly they were together. So when you,
No acres either.
huh?
No acres on it.
No, there was no acreage on them or anything else, so it just got to the point where nobody could figure out where any of these parcels were.
So has that been revised?
It
Has
has,
that been corrected? I shouldn't say not
the
revised.
arrows have been corrected, and some of the numbers have in fact been put back on the parcels.
But
So they're
the
more
parcel
readable.
number and the acreage always used to be right there,
But they weren't,
huh?
they weren't.
Well, who told them not to put them on there then?
Well, this goes back to.
This goes back to Kit, ask Kit, because this is before
Well-
my time.
Well, actually,
Kit wasn't on. when
I
we
wasn't
picked-
on. It
when
was
we picked
before.
the-
It was before
right,
you,
it was
huh?
before me.
It was right before we picked a reappraisal.
Right before I got stupid again and got back on the board. That's why, and here I am back again. I haven't figured out.
You don't learn your lesson, do you?
I haven't figured out who's
I guess
done
we
it.
we
Me
don't
or the
know
people
yet.
that voted for me, and I think it's the people who voted for me. I do, but
That's the
anyhow,
one.
So yes,
That
here's,
last one, that 700.
here's where the revisions that this is a copy of, where they actually came back.
all right,
That's 2014 though.
Here's-
Isn't it?
yep.
That was
May.
the last and final bill, but now we have another.
See, that was for $750, that was for the revised tax maps.
All right.
She says he delivered 2 sets, which technically should be one for the listers and one for the clerk's office, but Anita didn't have one.
This is what I think we need to do.
And we finally
Number
got it
one,
digital.
number one, is that the listers that are unhappy with the way this revised one is, then I think that we need to make a list of the things that we're unhappy with and get back with Dashi and Kramer and say, this is what we need. Because it says, feel free to call if you have questions.
Right, but I will point out, we jumped through these hoops.
Who we?
We, being the board.
Okay.
Jumped through these hoops multiple times when they first came back revised and asked the listers to come up with a set of what they were not happy with.
Okay.
We could not get it
And
from
the
the
listers
listers.
have not done that.
They would not do it.
Miss O'Neill had a hand in setting up the first set. She
Right.
had a hand when they came back bad. They actually signed off on them. It
Which is
wasn't
why
until
the
a
bill was
month
paid.
later that the lawyers and Anita decided, we can't work with these, and Kathy had a really good look at it before you were on the board.
Right.
But in any case, then the listers began to blame the select board for signing a contract that was handwritten. In any event, they had opportunity for many, many times to go up and talk to them, or Dalshi would come down here to talk to them, or Mr. Bill Kramer. And it didn't get straightened out. This has been strung out
I
over the
know.
course of
For a year.
Lord knows that.
4 years now.
So, here's my suggestion. I think we, as a board, or whoever, should ask Mike to make us a list of what they're unhappy with the revised mapping.
Now, their revised bill was
Or-
last May.
Or meet with Bill. I don't care. I'll meet with Mike and Bill and me or whatever. But I don't know why we're unhappy. But if I knew, I'm happy to sit down and say, this is what we need. I think all of that old stuff that's been going on for years and whatever's happened between the listers, that needs to just be put on the shelf somewhere, because we need the right maps. And I think that Dashi and Kramer are able and willing to do that, but they just don't know what we need. And I think that we need to tell them what we need.
And that's fine.
Yeah, but also there should be a parcel number, whether it's arrow, and an arrow going to the one across the road or whatever, but it should say, give you the acreage.
No, it's not.
But the
Because
select-
if I come in and wanna look at a parcel, say maybe Craig owns, but I don't know where it is or anything, and I find out it's for sale, I should be able to know how many acres and stuff that the town is
But
checking.
but it really all has to come out of the lister's office, and it needs to be checked with Anita and the lawyers and whatever that are gonna be working with these maps. I
Oh,
mean,
no.
there's more information than just lister information, but basically it's the listers that need to drive it. When the select board signed a $12,000 contract back in 2012, this began to dribble. I mean, it took a long time for them to come up with maps, but they began to come in wrong. The listers did not complain about it until it was too late. And we'd already paid the bills. And then there was a request for revisions, but Dalshi Kramer did not get the specifications that you're looking for now. How do you want these changed? In any kind of explicit, hard-working form so that they could make those changes. And there have been a couple of revisions since, minor, $700, $800 revisions. And I think now it's a done deal. We have our digital copies now.
And that's what this bill is for, that we did ask for a
Well,
digital copy
I
a
think
year
We
ago.
owe the bill, we owe the bill.
They're gonna tell you, if they didn't complain about it, then your hands are tied.
We're gonna pay them and we're gonna start over again. That's my opinion. I mean, you can drag it out and point fingers and blame and who.
Oh, I'm not. I'm just saying. there was
Right
a-
now, what we need
Good maps.
appropriate, good, usable maps. And whether that's gonna come from the lister's office, which I would expect,
They're the ones working with them.
let's meet with the listers and say, hey, what are we gonna do?
They actually
And
went,
then we'll talk with Dashi and Kramer, and what's it gonna cost us, and we'll start.
they actually went down to Staples, I believe.
You just paid the bill.
Yeah,
100
and
something.
took the old maps, the ones that they had been writing on and
The ones that
whatnot.
Howard Lott had done.
Yeah, they took those old
Manufactured.
maps and had them photocopied.
Pictures.
They don't even use the ones here. They don't
And
even
the
use
trouble
them.
with them, the old ones, if they hadn't been updated,
They haven't. That's what they're working on.
and the problem is, the
Yeah,
parcels that been broke off from them or anything like that's not gonna show.
Well, it's, at this point in time, it was just a matter of do we pay that $130 bill for something that we thought was done a year ago? was about what it amounted to.
I think that you need to pay the bill, and I think that whoever, the board and the listers, we need to meet and say, what do we need? I mean, because I don't know what we need for maps, I don't use the maps. The listers use them, the lawyers use them, and the town clerk uses them. So, between the listers and the town clerk, we ought to be able to find out what we need, and if we have to revise it again, then we have to. But all of that old stuff that's been going on for years needs to be put away. It just needs to.
And that's,
We've gotta start over. You
Right, and
can't,
I don't disagree with
you
you.
can't run
Townshend
around.
Kramer has current sketches, I mean, the properties are pretty well laid out. It shouldn't be hard to revise them.
right.
Okay?
So how do we gonna move forward? You want me to talk to Mike?
Oh, I can talk to Mike.
Right, because he's chair of the board.
Yes.
Let's talk to Mike and see. I think we need to pay Townshend Kramer for the work that we've asked them.
If they didn't complain about it, we ain't got much choice.
No, we gotta pay them, and then we can start over, and whatever we gotta do, we gotta do. That's, it needs to get taken care of.
Okay, then moving on to the compactors. As you know, as of July 1st, we're changing the way we collect the money for the trash. And the committee that was put into place by the previous board has made the recommendation, which this board approved in principle, that we were going to go to a bag system. They recommended $2.50 a bag, and they made a recommendation as to who to buy those bags from. Now, I have a little bit of a problem with the recommendation that we should buy 50,000 bags for $11,000 to start this off. It wasn't budgeted, just so we're all aware.
How much that cost?
22 cents an hour.
That's what I saw, but it didn't come out right on my little computer.
The problem that bothers me on this
I could buy 11,000.
is I think we ought to get out of the rubbish business, because if that MRF done have holes, if they don't get dual stream stuff, you're gonna pay for trucking recyclables. So you're gonna have to find somebody and pay them to come and get them. Where space-wise, we don't have space enough. And there's a lot of things that are coming up in this trash business that the state's mandating. It's just gonna be a big expense.
My question was in here again, because I wasn't knowing what's going on, but how much is the town of Townshend going to get out of each bag that's thrown? Because you gotta pay for the bag, which is
Roughly
22.7, so 23 cents.
Right.
And you gotta pay the vendors, you gotta pay the stores, they're not gonna handle it for free.
Well, no, actually, the stores were going to do it. They said they would.
For free?
That's what they said. They were going to buy the bags from the town. That's the deal, supposedly, that's what we've been told.
How is it that we disposed 941.66 bags on average and collected fees of 897.8 bags, both monthly?
See, that's what this new bag system
But
take care of.
Well, yeah, but that, I mean, I understand that.
time you figure the price of your bags, you're gonna wind up at $2.27 a bag is all you're gonna get back.
But it's supposed to pay for dumping. We aren't supposed to have to dig out of our checkbook to finish paying.
No.
I understand that,
How that figure works is because I don't know as the landfill has been operated appropriately. I think that
Really?
some of the counting of the bags has not happened right and that kind of thing. That's just history. But I think that we're working on, we gotta correct it somehow. And
I mean, there's two sides of that fence. It's like you can charge a lot for the bag and cover our costs and keep the dead end roads somewhat clean and off beaten path clean.
Yep.
or we can do away with it and deal with the consequences of having the people dumping their bags wherever they may dump them. Which
But you get a lot of,
is a,
you get a lot of
It's gonna happen.
contractors that are already picking up rubbish in this town.
I understand that, but we also have half the neighboring towns, not so much the other ones, coming here and dumping their trash too, which
Well, that's true,
they're
but,
getting a discount at our cost.
well,
What do you mean, well?
a lot more discount all the way around than you realize.
It is or isn't?
It is.
Well, that's what I just said.
Because I don't think everything is being kept track of and taken care of. But that's my opinion.
Well, if you look in our little book here, it's apparent that the attendant up there hasn't been doing his job to the fullest part of the explanation of the job.
I would caution that we don't need to, we should
Yeah.
not get into job
Not in the job
descriptions.
descriptions, no.
And or personnel, how anybody's actually doing their job. Let's keep it generic from the standpoint of, we aren't collecting all the money that technically should be collected on any given
Point
week.
being, if it hasn't run right for the long time, what's gonna, all of a sudden, the bag's gonna change things? I
Well,
mean, it's got a better chance of changing it, but I don't know as though it's gonna be a fix-all.
That's an avenue, I don't know if it'll be a fix-all, but
So you won't have to give him any money when you get the new bags.
I understand.
They're all paid for, so you just throw them in.
I'm more and more, but here's my concern with that bag system is the new state mandates that are coming down, that are gonna be implemented over the next months and
5-6
couple of
years.
5 years, 3 years or whatever, where that's gonna leave us. And I'm more and more, and I was an opponent of this when Jeff was on, hi Jeff, and he always was, his mantra was, the town should get out of the trash business. And I'm leaning toward that myself now, because I don't know, I've read the new laws, and I've tried to digest them and understand how we as a town are gonna recoup all the expense that's gonna come
We don't
in enacting it.
have the space.
You don't have the space, we don't have the equipment, we don't have the time, and I think it's time for us to get out of the trash business, that's my own feeling, but,
I think I agree.
I've been, for a year now, since I found out about all this state stuff, and going to meetings every month. That's my feeling.
Lives on solid waste management, and he thinks we ought to get out of it, so.
Well, I mean, by some of the grumbling of some of the other people in the town, they're not happy with it, and it might be just as easy for them to get their own, get triple T,
I would-
Franklin or Reed.
Yeah.
Again,
whoever.
I'm just gonna caution that Townsend is a very diverse town as far as geographic location, and I think there are a fair number of people off the beaten path that would have a very difficult time contracting for pickup.
Or going to Brattleboro. And how do we get out of the district, or would we remain in the waste management
Well,
district?
you gotta furnish hazardous waste stuff, so you wouldn't probably get out of the district, but
But
you'd be
the
able to.
assessment, but the assessment is up to 17,500 now.
Yeah,
And that's a pretty big chunk to pay if we're not doing recycling.
but it
paper.
may be changing too, because they're right in the process now of leasing
For the solar
for
field.
solar.
But we're not gonna get any of those credits because we're.
Well, that may be, but there's money coming into the district for the thing, which will offset a lot of that stuff. Somewhere in the neighborhood, between $3,000 and $4,000 an acre a year, they're gonna get leased.
Yeah.
So if you got 15 acres, you're getting,
Just the lease.
you're getting some money there to offset some of these other things.
And the other response is that I think New Thing is out of the trash business.
They're right out of it completely.
And they're as diverse as us, and I don't think they've had a lot of problems. When you get around in the woods more than I do, I don't know.
Yeah, well, not, woods isn't the side of the road.
No,
so
I
much,
mean,
but-
that's what I mean, but I don't think it's any worse side the roads, any traveling that I do.
Well, I think I've had this discussion with the town clerk,
Yeah.
And she's adamant about the fact that she's not gonna be able to get anybody to go out and pick up her trash.
Do what?
Pick up her trash.
Oh,
If we were to get out of the business, that there's nobody that would go up that far to get her trash.
and it maybe you wanna put it to the voters, if they wanna foot the bill for trash, and
We do have a truck.
It's gonna be.
We just bought a truck.
We just bought a truck, we just need
All
another.
right, that, when they bought that, I said, that was, as far as I was.
yeah, but you can
concerned,
sell that, that's not, I mean, especially if you
But
get out of the
you can
trash
still
business,
get it.
there's enough unemployed guys, they'd love to buy the truck and
Which is what everybody
develop
did
a
with 30
rubber.
Yeah, the truck, that ain't nothing,
No, we did a good deal on the truck, I mean, and that was part of the reason for buying it. And we didn't spend 125, we
Yep.
technically are only in it for about $5,000.
but the thing is, it's gonna get more complicated down the road.
Well, and it's the space thing, I mean, we talked about that, this thing has been hashed and rehashed and hashed again. But with the new mandates coming down, you're right, there's not the space up there, you know, if you're gonna do something, you're gonna stay in the business, you gotta look at what Jamaica's doing, or Wardsboro, and.
Oh, composting and all that stuff.
Composting and taking care of the rodents when you start to compost, and the skunks and the.
Well, the narrow charge of this committee that worked in that, I don't know, 3 or 4 times and worked on this through the winter, part of the winter anyway, was just to look at the cost factor and
Yes.
figure out what our raw cost was and how that might be addressed.
Right.
And they decided
To
that
address the bill.
based on the numbers that they were given and the numbers that they calculated, that about $2.50 would cover the purchase price of a bag. And I don't want to say kill 2 birds, but it would eliminate the need for cash up there. It might increase the consistency of what got thrown, so that somebody didn't get to put in a truckload for $7, $8, $9, $10, as opposed to somebody who comes just with a kitchen bag for 2. So, I mean, they were looking at that, and this was their recommendation.
Yeah,
I'm not
but
belittling the recommendation at all, I think that if
But- you look at this, what it's supposed to be doing, is reducing the trash. You're still gonna have this much expense for a man and stuff and trucking. You may not have quite as much cost for disposal at Triple T or wherever, but your costs are not going down, but you're not gonna get the amount of revenue.
Well, we have to make a decision as to what we're going to do for July 1st. Because quite frankly, something has to happen so that people can get rid of their trash on the 1st of July. And the recommendation of this committee was to buy $11,000 worth of bags, which is 5 years worth. And that's why we put it on the agenda for tonight, is so that we can, if we're going to have to order bags, we need to get it started so that they're here in time for that July 1st timeline.
When is that Act 148 and the fact that we have to take the compost, or what year?
16.
16, I believe the composting is.
July 1st, 16 or?
I think
Yep.
it's.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was July 1st.
Yeah. I'm just gonna throw this in, and I'm sure the committee thought about it here somewhere, but to go into any of the stores and buy 5 trash bags is gonna cost you $12.50. And I know there's people in this town, they're gonna buy a 6-pack before they buy that $12.50.
You're gonna lose business.
Or they're gonna buy, and that's gonna lead to the roadside stuff, that'd be my.
Well, you're gonna lose
you know.
business, because the number of people in second homes, they're gonna show up with their big green bag at the end of the weekend, after partying or hunting or whatever else, and, or whoever the attendant is, will not be able to take $2.50 in cash from them. It'll be in the wrong bag. And they'll have to go down to the store and buy a half a dozen bags and rebaggage, they won't come back. You're gonna lose some business on it. I'm not saying.
Well, not necessarily, I'm not so concerned about losing the business as I am concerned about where that bag of trash is gonna end up.
Right.
That's where I'm more concerned about myself. And if they know from the get-go that, you know, there's no trash dump in Townshend, then I think that they, you know, if you go up there, you come up here on weekends or once a month or whatever, and you run up there to get rid of your trash and give him his $2 or $3 a whatever you give him, you go along, you come up there and you find out you can't do that, I don't think they're gonna, that's gonna wind up side the road, that's what it's gonna end up, side the road.
The town is gonna have to be part of that service, of course, because the highway department generates a fair amount, the municipal town hall some, the library, you know.
But you take, for example, like Bradburn and a lot of these places, or Newfoundland, strictly, it's gonna have to be to the hollow to pick it up. Well, he's not going to Wyndham Solid Waste with it.
No.
And if it gets so it's not feasible to run that marathon, they're gonna shut it down, then you're gonna have to pay to get rid of your recyclables.
That's what I think you got.
That's the problem you're gonna run into, because the state says you will recycle, but you're gonna have to pay a haul, and you're gonna have to buy boxes and the whole 9 yards to keep recycling.
If you're gonna do that, I think you ought to ask the town, if they wanna stay in the trash business, to fund it. And don't worry about your $2 a bag, it's gonna cost you
What it's
X
gonna
number of
cost.
dollars, it's gonna cost, and roll that into your tax base.
Yeah.
But you can't do it that way, it's gotta be on per pay,
All right,
according to the law.
If it's
Roll
municipal,
it.
that's right.
if it's municipal, but it doesn't, I don't think, if you're a private entity.
No,
I mean,
in other words,
if the town gets out of the business, don't be surprised if somebody doesn't spring up and start looking at that
all right, because.
as an opportunity for starting a business.
But he's gonna have to be licensed, so he's still gonna have to take out the recyclables and all that.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, what they're gonna do is they're gonna go to mixed recyclables. So in other words, all your paper, tin and everything will go right in one load, and it'll go somewhere and be sorted. But I don't believe it'll be down at the solid waste district.
No, probably not.
So that still isn't answering the question as to what we're gonna do for July 1st.
I don't think buying 5 years worth of bags is reasonable. Maybe, I mean, I could see 2 years, which would get you through the next 18 months until the Act 148 comes into play.
And see how it
And give you
works.
an extra 6 months.
So
With the bag.
figure how many bags,
Well,
which sheet?
50,000 bags is 5 years, so 20,000 bags, which is 80 cases.
I think your purchasing agent can find
Yeah, I think,
bags in the same price range at maybe 2,000 quantity ordered per time as opposed to 50,000.
I mean, I can still see them maybe coming in 5 bags, or that's a month's worth of bags probably. You know, for most households.
You should be able to buy a bag as a bag. A bag is a bag, how many you want. You shouldn't have to buy them in packages.
so we don't have any information on that the committee gave us. So do you want Craig to go out and look for
better deal, a good deal.
for a better deal, or for another, I don't know, color?
Polka dot. Polka dots.
I can't see buying 5 years worth of bags though, as you say, because we might be sat here eating them.
Right.
Well, but one of the things that they did with Waste Zero is I believe that was the one that was going to
Yeah,
store
that's the one they recommended, and.
They were gonna store the bags, that we didn't have to store them here.
Yeah,
You know, they were gonna deliver them to the stores that were going to be selling them, so we didn't have
No,
to.
they were gonna deliver them by the pallet here.
no, they were gonna do it one stop.
Yeah, it'll be by the pallet, here to the front door, we'll take them around to the basement, distribute them to
Okay.
West Townsend and wherever.
Well, then, but basically, the quantity that was ordered
You're
was
gonna
not going
move a
to have
pallet
to.
of bags down to the basement?
Yeah, you can drive in.
Not without a rig to handle pallets. Cause it's low door.
I'm not advocating we buy a pallet.
No, what I'm saying is a low door, so you can't have too high a rig.
Yeah, we'll have to unload it.
So what's your pleasure? What would you like to instruct Craig to do?
I mean, I can try to find you an alternative to buying $11,000 worth of bags up front right now, when the sense I get from this board is you don't know where you're gonna be
Yeah,
in a
right.
year,
Yeah,
let alone on July 1st.
no.
And I might be able to come back and say, you know, for $300 we can get started on this, you give me 90 days notice and we can get another $300 worth of bags or something. But, that's something that you can decide on, but I think there needs to be more of a committee, more of a
We
corporate
don't have any
decision.
money in the budget for it.
I know.
Say nothing about $11,000 worth, you ain't got any money in
That's
the
a lot of
budget
bags
for
to auction.
300.
If we go out of business next year, we got a lot of bags to
I
take
can't
them
exceed them, one bag at a time.
out. And they're gonna say Townsend on them.
Well, that's the thing, there's no money set aside or anything
Well,
for it.
there again, that's typical of the state, and as we were talking about this, we didn't really, in setting the budget, we were to the point yet where the committee had made a recommendation.
Let me just ask this. If the way that we're doing it now, if every bag that was thrown in there were paid for, we wouldn't have a problem, right?
The only thing that buying bags with Townsend's name on them does is eliminate the cash transaction up there. If somebody was up there charging, you could come up with a truckload, you could come up with a little bag.
I understand that.
Okay, and it could be by weight, you could put a scale there if you wanted to, you could do anything you wanted. But you can do pay per throw, where people actually pay for what they throw. And if you come with a can that doesn't have a bag in it, you can dump your can.
But you gotta be consistent.
That's wasn't what I was saying. What I was saying is if everything that we're throwing in there now, as we're working now, were paid for appropriately, we would be okay with the board, am I right? Financially. So
With
our
regard to the
problem,
state rule, with regard to the state rule.
but no, but the whole idea of doing this is because it's not paying for itself.
It's
Am I
coming-
correct?
It's coming close. The municipality is subsidizing this to about 20 cents.
Yeah, but,
I want to say, I'm trying to come up with a dollar figure and I can't off the top of my head.
Because
but they're paying for the trucking and the whole 9 yards.
It's included in this package, basically, that 250 would cover it, but half of it.
No, but I mean as of now, not the 250.
Right, but in the future, 250 would cover it, but 25 cents of that 250 is the bag.
Yeah,
So
right.
basically, right now, 2 1/4 would
that's
cover it.
not what I'm asking.
Okay.
Did you figure out how many bags weren't paid for?
Last year,
Yeah.
it said,
Just break it.
it disposed 941.66 bags on average, and the fees collected were 897.8
Per month.
per
So
month.
Right.
So you're talking about,
75 bags a
10
month
bucks or 10 bags a week,
But-
basically,
that aren't getting,
that aren't accounted for.
that aren't accounted for.
But basically, you've also got to remember
And
that
that's
you're
back
basing,
to
you're
what I was
basing,
saying about the attendant needing to do his job, and if he did his job, then he wouldn't have such a
And we wouldn't have to
discrepancy.
do this.
but you're basing it on a tonnage as opposed, you're averaging the weight of the bag, and that's not how it happens. People throw couches in there that weigh more than the quantity of bags that they would contain.
That was the
We dump
electric bags.
4 or 5 bags out of town hall, plus 2 from the library, plus I don't know how many, 3 or 4 out of the highway garage. That's all subsidized by the town. We don't pay for those. Those all go in for free, basically. I mean, there is accumulation that is not accounted for.
Now, am I right or wrong that we're paying on a, in a rate of tonnage, and
Right.
if we use
We're
less, we
paying
pay
$100,
less?
we're paying $100 a ton.
And
to
it's like,
dispose
what my point is if the attendant is taking trash from only the town of Townsend,
Goes to the state.
and all the bags that enter that compactor are paid for, we're probably not gonna have to go through this.
But what he's saying is they're not, because a lot of it is town.
I
also.
Well,
understand
some
that,
portion
but
of
the
it is
point
right.
is that we're bringing in trash from Newfane, Brookline, so on and so forth, wherever it might come from.
But they're paying, right?
It doesn't matter if they're paying, we're paying more on the premium for the tonnage that we're bringing down there.
By how much? 10 bags a week? Is that what you figured?
Those are just the ones that are unaccounted for. Never, I mean, those ones are being paid for, it's just, it's an unknown number of how much.
So you can't do that, you can't equate bags to tonnage, that's what he's
But
saying.
they have. That's where those
I mean, they
bags
have to
came
come
from.
up with a ballpark. How many bags do we need to order a month and have a month's reserve and have on hand?
So if
and
they're
what
equating
would the
bags to
cost be?
tonnage and we're talking about 10 or 15 bags a week that aren't paid for,
Yeah,
I think we're reinventing the wheel for
Again, I mean, if you were charging 2 1/4 right now, all this would be covered, basically. I mean, in terms of the state wanting you to pay the actual cost, the diesel fuel, Kurt's time to drive the truck into town, the tipping fees, not the recycling, Arnold's wages, the maintenance on the vehicle, all of that would be basically covered. And the town would be subsidizing this. It's not a break-even proposition, but it's close. It's a service the town provides, and it costs a couple of $1,000 a year.
I think you leave it like this.
But also, I was looking in there, when they have to up it a half an hour to take the truck?
When did they what?
No, 2.5 hours now
It's an
round
estimate.
trip.
Yeah, it's an estimate.
The only thing that the bags do is it makes very clear what garbage is coming from Townsend. Because technically, if you don't have a purple bag, you can't put it in the compactor.
What's
You
to
know,
stop
which-
somebody from buying bags down at the store?
Who the hell cares? It's they're paying $2.50 a bag.
If everybody, well, whatever. If we wanna have a Townsend compactor, let's have Townsend compactor. If we wanna have Wyndham Solid Waste at the Townsend, town garage, then let's have that. I mean, it's there for Townsend.
But there is an ordinance in that's been in since '78. that They will not accept any, and no trash will be transported across the town line.
Right.
But basically,
But that's another ordinance that doesn't get enforced, but I mean, I think that we're making a mountain here that if it's basically, we're talking a couple of grand a year or something.
That's all you're talking.
I
But the state mandate is that you will collect money, you pay as you
I
serve.
think-
You will collect sufficient money to cover your costs, and it itemizes what those costs are.
I think if we're
We're
gonna stay in the
close.
trash business, we keep it like we're doing and stay as close as we can until we can figure out what we're gonna do about these new laws and mandates. And that's gonna be your issue when you come to the compost thing. And if I think as a board, we, us, later the next board, whatever, we gotta figure out what you're gonna do about these new laws that are coming in.
the only thing that's going to be an issue is as all the other towns, none of the other towns surrounding us had gone to any kind of a pay-as-you-throw. So if we don't change the way we're doing right now, as they're all coming online with their new fees, if they come in with a higher bag fee, for example, if they come in with $3 a bag, then all of a sudden, if we don't have bags that are designated for Townsend and only to be accepted, purple bags in Townsend's truck, then suddenly we're gonna be getting Jamaica bags at $2.50 or $2 or whatever the devil it
But
is.
it's a lot cheaper to put a sticker on the windshield of a car than it is to buy $11,000 worth of bags.
Absolutely agree.
And if we find that we need to raise our bag price here, then you raise it.
Or you need to be on the grand list, and that means you become a card carrying whatever. But I mean, if you own property,
But also, you're gonna have to register with the solid waste district. That truck is gonna have to be registered with them with a sticker and everything on the gun.
Supposedly it already is. Didn't we have that discussion?
solid waste management sticker.
No, this is something new through this 148.
Yeah, and that's coming down the road, but I'm saying, what you're doing, this is a conversation about bags that's wandering off, but with regard to the bags, the only thing that's doing is eliminating the need for Arnold to handle cash, and keep it in a tin can and deliver it to where he delivers it to in the dead of night, and leave it under the porch and whatever. There are issues there. Kit knows as well as anybody, you can buy a small safe for up there that has you can just
And then when they want to take it, they take safe
You can
enough.
you can buy a platform scale you weigh game on. You know, it's not that expensive if you want to do weight. There are ways around this instead of having purple bags or whatever, and forcing everybody to do that.
But as far as the weight part of it, that's gonna be,
I don't know, I think we.
If you want to control
then
cash.
then when you go that way, you're gonna have to be dealing with cash if you go with weight.
If you go with weight, you're going to have to deal with cash. If you want to eliminate the cash, you mandate tokens. You mandate tokens. And you
We
can
did
sell
that once with that,
It's no different than bags.
run out of
No,
tokens.
it is, because the tokens recycle.
Yeah, but when you run out of tokens sometimes, then what do you do?
In the town.
You order enough.
Yeah, but that's what we thought we did before. And you go to the store, no tokens. We come here, yeah, they might have some, or they might, or somebody else might have picked up on something. And
I got a whole drawer full of them in there.
Yeah, but if I
Anybody
can
took
order,
it.
but if I can order purple bags, you know, for 23 cents, why would I buy them for 2.50?
no, that's right.
Now granted, they're gonna say Town of Townsend, but do I have to show in the window, the man who's sitting there,
can't
that's
you
not
buy
coming out
bags?
anymore, that it says Town of Townsend?
Yeah, but that's why you're gonna have to do something.
I don't know. We keep
Or
our-
whoever the attendant is, you're gonna have
in
to.
one big
Do you want to
circle.
table it? Do we need to make a decision tonight?
We're gonna have to make a decision. If we're gonna order bags, they have to be done if we're gonna be ready for July 1st. If we're not gonna order bags, it's a moot point.
It's not just sitting, the job is not just sitting in the house. Taking care of they also should be making sure the recycle bins, if they're still there, or kept pushed over so they don't fill up so quick in one place and no room.
Goes back to our select board handbook.
So, what's your pleasure? What would you like to do?
What are you looking for?
Trying to figure out what to do about garbage bags. How much time has been wasted in the state of Vermont the last year discussing garbage?
Come on, show me the board.
Too much on this board, I'll guarantee that. Shall we leave it alone? Are we not going to get bags?
I believe that right now, the district, solid waste district, has agreed to go through the year 2016 with their recycling bins and see how it works. So maybe that's what we have to do, try a year and see how it works. And the bag, and with bags or something, and then if we find out or in December it ain't gonna work out, then have something to tell me.
So do we wanna order bags? What do we wanna do?
Yeah, we probably ought to figure it, I don't know, roughly what you might use for a year. The maximum,
I think you leave it the way it is.
but even at a quarter a bag, at 23 something, at the 50,000, probably the others be a quarter a bag for
Grams.
10,000 or some
Honestly, I
goddamn
didn't do
thing.
that.
Yes, you did.
Okay. That hurt.
Wicked grams.
So then again, either we're going to go to standardized bags or we're just going to up the fee, because technically we've all agreed that the fee right now is not where it needs to be in compliance with the law. We have to go up at least to $2.50. So are we agreed on that?
If you
But
want,
that includes 23 cents cost of that.
That's true too.
but I say, if you're,
I think you need to be safe, at maybe, well, 225, maybe cutting it right on the edge. But you don't want to go to 230 or 240, because then you're handing out dimes. So,
So what's your pleasure? What would you like to do?
I was thinking that they would, with a 20, all these other towns with a 20-gallon bag, you've gone to $2, and then they've gone to $3 with a 30-gallon bag.
What about my 70-pound contractor bag when I throw it in? Because I want every inch of space taken up in it when I throw my $2 in.
You don't use
But there all these other towns, like Town of Brattleboro's gonna be selling the bags, you're gonna have to use their bags. The same as you're talking about here. Town of Vernon already is doing it. So that it ain't, as if you bring in the contractor's bag, it's gotta be in a certain bag.
Middlebury and Burlington have 3-bag prices, but the highest price, that contractor's bag is like $4.50.
The way the law reads, a multi-pricing system, which it could be 2 prices. But if a guy recycles and he only brings in a 20-gallon bag, you're still gonna charge him the same price as you do somebody for 30-gallon?
Depends on what he's driving.
That was the whole point behind having one standardized bag. It doesn't matter how much you stuff it full. if it fit one of the Townsend bags, it could go into the compactor.
Yeah, but I generate one bag of trash a month. Yeah. And that's not full. And you're gonna still charge me $2.50 or whatever for half a bag?
What are you using for a trash bag? A body bag? One a month? Holy smokes.
I don't know, but
It says right here, we're using 941 bags average are going in there. Why don't we order up, like we're saying, a year, year and a half, 2 years worth of them? See how it works, or don't, or do. I mean,
Yeah, I think that's the best way to try it.
It's,
Hey,
I don't think
if we find out
50,000's a
something's
little
gonna
bit
change-
much. I think the trash business for us might be over our head.
You're gonna say, if we find out that things are gonna change drastically, and we don't have the space and stuff, then we can always have it to town meeting. Between now and town meeting, we'll get a rough idea anyways.
so, then at this point in time, I need a motion to do whatever it is that you want to do. Whether
Motion
it's,
with a second, discussion and a vote, see which way it goes, and
What do you-
go from there.
And you figure 50,000 for what, 5 years?
that's what they suggest, or what, yeah, that was the price break, was 50.
$1,000 bags a
50,000,
month, right?
yeah.
911, so it's $1,000 a month. It's 12,000 bags.
And do we want to
10,000
use-
bags?
No, not 10,000, well, okay.
Well-
Do we want Craig to look for additional prices? Do we want Town of Townsend on them? Do we want to go with the committee's proposal? Do we want to walk away with it?
941.
A month? 1,000 bags a month.
Right.
It's 12,000 bags.
I need a motion.
Yeah. Well, can you get like TFT or something like that put on them for,
You can get
You get whatever you want.
a picture.
no,
of
no, no, TFT would be Town of Townsend.
Yeah, you can have whatever you want. You can, literally you can. I mean, I didn't make the phone calls on this, I wasn't on this little committee. But they came up with, they got recommendations from WSWMD district and a lot of people.
Oh, yeah,
use
they
Waste
gave
Zero.
them, he gave them a lot of information.
Oh, no, a lot of people use Waste Zero, they're a good company, but they're printing bags for cities like Boston, where 50,000 bags is nothing.
Kathy,
Or suburbs.
should we find out what, I don't know, say 5,000 bags would cost you?
Sure.
Well, we could do that. I mean, basically, one of the quotes here was for purple bags, because we all could identify the purple. And, price includes delivery to one location in Townsend with the 5-pack sleeve. And they were going to cover the cost of printing on the bags. But that was the 50,000 for
Yeah.
11,000.
Printing is not
When you
expensive.
order them, how long does it take to get them?
Well, there is a lead time involved in this. If you want Town of Townsend and you're
Right.
gonna order 50,000 and you wanna buy July 1st, then you really need to be getting in there by the end of March, early April. You need to give them 60 days, plus minus 90 days, lead time on this kind of an order. Most orders that I've seen, you wanna give them about 60 days if you can. But it depends on how elaborate you wanna get.
I was just thinking that,
And if you're wearing
that way
sunglasses,
somebody else
the
couldn't,
bags look just like everything else.
what I was saying, somebody else just couldn't go out and get a purple bag and if you didn't have some imprint of some kind on it.
Well,
But,
that's why they were looking for poker bags.
yeah, but I say,
They were looking at lavender.
people could still, wanted to beat the system if they knew there was no imprint on them.
But again, the imprint is only as good as if somebody's looking
Oh,
to see
yeah,
if the
no, I
imprint is
realize
on
that,
it.
I realize that
And if you
too.
have TOT on one side and you got the bag turned, they don't know. And are they gonna challenge you? Maybe they will. But it depends. You're making less work for the attendant that you have now, who, if he has to check every bag, should check every bag.
Still need a motion.
But if you do that a little while, they'll find out
Just
that
keep saying it.
And make a
if you're
motion,
checking bags, they're gonna
Good luck with that.
pretty much make up their mind that you're not gonna get away with anything.
make a motion to buy a year's worth of purple bags. Oh, I'm sorry, lavender. Are they lavender? Does it make a difference?
Craig, you're shopping for purple bags. Are they, have writing on them?
We have a second on
If
that?
you want to, there's no stopping me to go on to Google and find custom trash bags and write down the Townshend on them and buy them myself if I want to.
And if somebody wants to go around trying to find a purple trash bag that fits ours, then whatever.
So we're just looking for purple trash bags?
I don't know.
Townsend on it.
Oh, we do want Town of Townsend on it. T a T.
Go ahead, sure. Hot.
No kids allowed. Is there a second?
Second,
Is there any further discussion, or we beat
No,
this horse
no,
to
there's
death?
That's 1 year's worth.
yeah,
So about
but
12,000, 10, 12,000 days.
Yes.
Yeah.
No further discussion?
then we can see what happens.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? You're not gonna vote?
I'm kind of with Kip, but
Oh, if you're with Kit, then I'll break the tie. Are you
I'm
gonna,
with
you're gonna abstain?
No, I didn't abstain.
Oh, what did you, you said no, okay. So 2 noes and 2 yeses, is that where I am?
yeah,
Okay, then I
Okay,
vote,
so 2 yeas, 2 nays,
and I say yes.
tiebreaker. Okay, so we have a motion to buy 10, 12,000, a year's supply. Town of Townsend bags in purple.
Whatever color is not being used by the other tenants.
Keep peace in the family, you better make them purple.
Oh, I will. But if you're wearing sunglasses, purple looks like
Okay,
green.
I'm just
looks like
telling you,
black.
keep peace in the family, please. All right. Liquor licenses, you said you have.
I have 2 applications. Well, that's a good folder to get rid of there. And the trash is there.
Is there anything with the liquor licenses, or
I'm
is it
sorry?
just paper? Damn. All right. Yeah. So, do we want to do them separately? Yes, we do. So, I will entertain a motion to sign a class,
Class 2?
must
should
be class 2. Liquor license for Riverbend Market.
Yeah, it's VSAG, isn't it? Vermont Staple Goods.
Staple Goods,
Vermont
it must
Staple
be,
Goods.
but it's not here, yeah, there it
Yeah,
is.
it is.
Vermont Staple Goods, Inc.
Yeah.
I'll entertain that motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the liquor license application for Vermont Staple Goods signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Everybody has signed that, I think.
I don't know where though.
Every second page.
Oh, there it is, okay.
Everybody.
Okay,
Is there tobacco? There isn't tobacco on there also, okay.
no, these
Yeah,
are
so it's
just
pure
liquor.
Right.
I'll entertain a motion to approve a class 2 liquor license for the smoke shop. Is there a DBA somewhere here, somewhere? Lord Smoke Shop and Country Store. I'll entertain.
So moved.
Is there a second?
seconded.
Is there any discussion?
I will recuse myself from this.
All those in favor of approving the liquor license application for Lawrence Smoke Shop and Country Store signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
One
Motion,
abstention.
yes, motion passes. That's not gonna work.
I have the best handwriting out of all you guys.
I can't write in the line. You can't sign that one. It'll have to go that way. Yeah, we'll get it back to it.
Sorry, you're sitting this thing? Nope, you're good. Just you.
Okay. And I guess I'll sign it on top? Where do I sign?
Just this.
Yeah,
Well, the
right
other
there.
side says disapproved, so I didn't figure I'd sign over there.
Okay, that's completely signed. Okay,
They know
you
what I'm
all, did you copy the list of appointments for
I
everybody?
did, everybody has it updated.
Okay, could,
Miss Davis will be the service officer, and I talked to her earlier.
so
She's very happy with that.
why don't we all take a, since we're gonna go late tonight, why don't we all just take a look at that between the two meetings and see if there's anybody that we might feel comfortable to approach to see if they wanna continue in their position and come back to the next meeting with anybody who says absolutely not.
I have 8 that you can do right now.
Oh, well, if you've got some, let's go ahead and do them.
Okay. I mean, it's up to you. I know that Carol Mellis and Charmaine will continue as 911 coordinators.
Okay.
That's at the top of the page.
I would make a motion that we
It's just a
appoint
nomination.
or nominate Carol Mellis and Charmaine Shirks as 911 coordinators.
Wait a minute, you're appointing, you're not nominating.
Well, okay, you're appointing. You need a motion for appointments?
Yes, you would.
I'm sorry, my mistake,
That's what I thought.
yeah.
So change it to a motion.
Yeah, I make a motion that we appoint Carol Mellis and Charmaine Shirks as 911 coordinators for the period of 1 year.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we'll do that one.
I make a motion that we appoint Craig Hunt as,
No.
what?
That's not one of the ones I had vetted out.
Well,
Carol
I
Mellis
haven't.
Carol Mellis will also do the Howard Legacy again. She really should have some other people with her, but she will do that. And Bob DeServo would be a tree warden.
Yeah, but you, what, just a minute.
Let's
We're
take
going
them in
down the
order.
list here.
You wanna take them in order?
Yeah.
Well, we haven't had a chance to speak
Well,
to most of these people.
I do right here, I'm just making a motion that we appoint Craig Hunt as cell tower overseer coordinator for a period of 1 year. That was a motion.
You're gonna need some high rescue training if I'm gonna be your overseer of the cell tower.
He's not tech rescue. All those in favor of having Craig Hunt serve as the cell tower liaison, I guess it is.
Done such a good job in the last decade, might as well stick with it, right?
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right, Craig, you're stuck.
Yeah.
Now, who did you have that you spoke to?
I just had Carol Mellis for Howard Legacy and Bob
Okay.
DeServo for tree warden.
Okay, so a motion for Carol for Howard Legacy.
I move that we appoint Carol Mellis for the period of 1 year for Howard Legacy.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And you said DeServo
Bob
for
DeServo
Trevo.
for tree warden.
Where's Planning Commission? Where's
How come
Trevo?
there's 3 2015s on that?
On what? I don't know. On Howard Legacy, there's only one person serving. so-
Because there is only one person serving. Ernest Redfield.
No, it's
I
3,
think Ellie Lemire.
there's 3 people
didn't-
on,
but
3
they didn't-
people on that thing.
Right, but they didn't re-up last year. Carol did it by
There's
herself.
there's two holes.
But there should be,
There should be 3 people.
Been
We
3,
have-
3
we have
to break
one.
a tie.
so are we,
Somewhere.
That was a hole that
Well-
didn't get filled.
are we listing advertising?
Well, we're gonna
positions
have
that
to.
are
This is
open?
your first meeting,
What?
so
What does it show in the town report?
actually, I think it just shows Carol.
Yeah, I think it does too. So we're making appointments to the ones that we know.
That we
Yeah,
know,
it just,
we've already
it just
spoken
shows, it
to.
just shows Carol.
So I would make a motion that we appoint Bob DeServio for a period of 1 year as tree warden.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
I make a motion that we appoint Margaret Bills for the period of, where's that, Ware of Cole?
Done.
For
Shortly
the period of 1 year as Ware of Cole.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I make a motion that we appoint Joe Dano for the period of 1 year as Ware of Cole.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Where the hell are we at here now, just a minute. No, that's why I wanted to go in order. So we can at least do the ones that we can. Do you know is David in, out, or what's going on with?
David's out.
David's out.
Kyle Lapointe was appointed on Monday night to be your emergency management director, so that one is done.
That's done.
Huddle is on the sheet here.
I make a motion, we appoint Craig Hunt as energy coordinator for a period of 1 year.
Oh, he's not gonna say no.
I'm running out of energy.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Well, in order to square that up, how's Phil doing? Phil Ferraro is 911 fire department liaison.
We have to ask him if he wants to.
You'd have to ask, right, but he
Yeah.
has been that for, I don't know how many. at
Well,
least
that's why I was
5 or
filling,
6 years.
I was filling the ones that we
That you know
know,
you
and
can
then we
fill.
can make a list of who we have
Yep.
to ask. All right? So we're down to fence viewer, Craig Hunt for 1 year.
There we go, okay. All those in favor?
All right.
Signify by saying aye.
All right.
Okay. And Schaefer and Holly are set.
The other ones you can
John
do-
Evans, you already did.
Yep, we already took the planning commission. You can follow right behind planning commission. The constables should be your animal control officers. The select board should be the pound keeper.
Right.
And those two you can do.
So a motion to make the constables the animal control officers?
So move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then,
And way down at the bottom, Wyndham County Sheriff.
we forgot that, wait a minute,
Sure,
select board
you
on
keep
pound
I'm
keeper?
sorry,
Jumping
I'm
here.
sorry. Thought you were doing both there.
No,
All right.
pound keeper, select board,
So move.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Something on this.
Kathy, you already did. Okay, Recreation Committee, we have to fill and find out. Rescue Incorporated, Kathy, you already did that. And we'll have to check with the others on the screening committee.
Yeah. Cynthia said she would do
She
the,
would, she's already on. That's taken care of.
that's
You
right,
just
we
did
did
Bobby
that.
Servo.
Okay,
Wyndham County Sheriff Liaison, it has been the constables. They've worked fairly closely with Keith on a couple of different issues, and that seems to work.
Where the hell did you go? Oh, you're way down there, you keep jumping.
so I'll entertain a motion to make the constables the Wyndham County Sheriff
Look.
liaisons?
Let me just discuss that because and this may have changed, but I know that the constables work hand in hand with the sheriffs and that sort of stuff, but the liaison was the representative from the board to the sheriff's department, as we used to do with the Vermont State Police. And so that the board, like we had questions tonight, and that sort of thing, could bring it back to the sheriff's department, not ask the constables to do that, so. That was my understanding. I mean, you can make it the constables if you like, but.
Well, the Vermont State Police liaison needs to come off of there because quite frankly, we tried to appoint last year and that committee or that group is no longer there. It has been dissolved.
What group?
The Vermont State Police liaison, that group, that committee group that used to meet. There was a Citizens Action Committee and that has been, Luke Evans used to serve on it.
Yeah, I did.
And they used to have meetings once every couple of months or something.
And it's
just
been
to-
dissolved.
Right.
Done
That's
there for
been-
years.
Yeah.
I used to be on,
Yeah.
So we can cross that off.
when Baker was in charge.
So did you want to change
Oh, don't matter, I was just.
Wyndham
saying.
County Sheriff liaison?
No, I think Kate has a good point. I mean, that if you need somebody to work with, I mean, it was done last year with the constables. I think in part because Warren had a pretty good relationship with the deputies. I mean, there were a number of issues.
Yeah, but that doesn't answer that question.
No, it doesn't answer your questions. I agree with that. I mean, we've tried to have representatives from the sheriff's department here any number of times without success, and we certainly haven't turned to the constables to aid and assist in getting the sheriff's department here.
So what's your pleasure? Okay. Well, then why don't we just at this point in time, just
I'll fill those
Put
in
up-
and retype
put
it
some-
for everybody, and
so-
so you'll have a clean sheet for next time.
so
but-
also, anybody that has served in a position for a while, if we could approach them to see if they're willing to continue to serve in that position, it would be helpful to have for the next meeting.
One of the important ones on here is Wyndham Regional Commission. I really don't have time for it. It is a big operation, the meetings are demanding, it's a good operation. I think John Evans will continue, but I haven't talked to him, with regard to being the traffic liaison and deal with some of the highway issues that they get involved in. I do not know Brad Horn, and I've been on the Wyndham Regional Commission for a year now, and been to every one of their meetings, I've yet to meet him. That having been said, it is important for the town to have a representative, but it does take some time and it does take some thinking, and I'm just exhausted by it. I'm working with, hazard mitigation, I'm working
Yeah,
with
I
FEMA
know,
floodplain, I'm
you
working
got,
with
no, I
Wyndham Regional
know, you got
anyway.
way too much.
Well, I'm working with them
Well,
anyway.
it's true.
On a number of issues, and we're
Check
gonna
with
be,
John, maybe he has an idea of somebody who
Yeah.
might be good on there,
No.
going to work.
So yeah, if you would get us a clean sheet for next time so we can see exactly what's
oh
going
yeah, no,
on.
I filled this one out for you for this
Yep.
time, and we'll just keep adding to it
Okay.
until we.
Irv and Dale have already
Said
agreed
yes,
to do,
yeah.
to that. Fine.
Okay, the delinquent tax collector legal costs. One of the issues that, we've seen this time with the tax sale that's coming up this week is a property came out of bankruptcy. And there have been, over the years, numerous legal bills that have been associated with this particular piece of property while it was in bankruptcy. And the question has come up as to how these costs can be carried over so that we recoup them when these properties in fact do go to tax sale. What was it, it used to be about $600 a pop from this bankruptcy lawyer while this property was in bankruptcy. And we need to try to figure out whether or not those costs are going to end up being recouped because it's been such a long process getting to this.
What does the $600 per pop cover?
Don't know. Sure,
Legal counsel for the delinquent tax collector
Right.
who has a charge, she's an elected official, she has a charge to collect the delinquent taxes, but often runs into legal issues. And
We just get the bill.
she used our town attorney for advice, and he indicated last year or 2 years ago that he was not a bankruptcy lawyer, not a specialist in that. Made a referral to a gentleman up north, an attorney up north, and she's been working with him on this. All of a sudden, we got bills and we had to pay them, and that's
Doesn't it-
As far as my understanding is, that property's still liable for the taxes and the legal fees.
Yes.
Well, they do get added on to the cost of the tax sale. They are
Yes.
recoverable, and they will be eventually recovered.
But it's been so long going over the course of these years that it's been in bankruptcy.
It's not a budgeted item. It's a complicated bookkeeping.
It's still
But it's
bankruptcy.
delinquent tax.
Well, it goes on to the delinquent tax, like the penalties continue to
But
accrue,
it
the
is-
interest,
it-
the legal costs go on
The
to.
tax, the property is delinquent in their taxes, am I correct?
Yes.
All right. Why not do a tax sale? And the legal expenses are a legal
Right, they get added
expense,
on.
they get added on to the tax sale.
Which I believe is part of what's happening now. While it was in bankruptcy, you could not sell it. The court said
Right,
you can't
that's
pull
right.
it out from under somebody.
Right.
At least while they're trying to make arrangements.
Is it still bankruptcy?
No.
It has come out of, yeah, it's come out.
Goes to tax sale.
But it's for tax sale,
But-
and
but-
all the expenses too.
Again, but one of the questions that's come up is the delinquent tax collector, has she kept track of all the charges over the years that she's incurred on this particular piece of property, waiting for it to come out of bankruptcy? You know, every time
would hope so.
we would get a bill for $600, the town would pay it. But is she on her end, because that was 2 years ago, keeping track?
Well,
of that.
That's something we want to check with her and make sure she has kept track.
And if she hasn't, we ought to at least have them somewhere in our own files.
Well, yeah, but then if you look at this has changed 3 times today and it's still not right. If you look at page 2 on your budget report, the delinquent tax collector's legal
The lawyer should have known how
line
many times we paid them.
is off.
It's one out of
Now
Bethel.
193 instead of whatever it's supposed to be, 9.
You know, so it's just a question that came up because this has been long running,
Oh,
this
yeah.
particular property.
But it's, because you run into the same thing, we had a piece that was sold at tax sale. The town held it for quite a while and then it was sold. Well, anything over what the tax was, we wound up opening the estate back up to turn the money over.
Which brings up a whole nother question.
No, it's a whole
not on
other
the
issue
agenda.
that's
It's
not on the agenda.
for-
And we're not opening that one
No,
tonight.
but I say, we collected what money that we had, but they got more money than what was due the town, so we had to do whatever had to be done.
Well, we
Okay,
can invite the collector to a meeting at some point to have a conversation, or we can
Well,
just
the
try to.
tax sale was the 25th.
right.
That's right, tax sale
The,
is
the, the
25th.
tax sale will be over and done by that point in time.
And those legal fees should be added on to the tax sale expense.
We can, I'll just make a note, we can try to see what we've got for a full assessment here.
Because
Tax sales are complicated from a bookkeeping point of view. They incur a lot of holding money in separate accounts for a year for redemption, and there are, the money in the account is actually split like 4 different ways between the collector's fees and the actual tax and the interest accrued, the penalty, the legal fees.
Yep.
I mean, it's broken into a lot of little
Yep.
components, so it really is hard back here to, and some of those have been riding for a while. But we'll see what we can come up with.
all right, so, is there any other business?
One thing.
Yep.
And we don't need to discuss it at length, I don't think tonight, but it was brought up, and I meant to do it on the additions and deletions, but at town meeting, Ken Hoffman, was adamantly talking about doing the sidewalk, or making some sort of a sidewalk up through Route 35, because of the use that it gets, so I think at some point, we as a board need to look at that. It's not just Ken, it is town, but I think that's got an issue that's gonna come up, so stick that on the back burner somewhere.
We can add that to a future agenda whenever you would like that.
Yeah.
I think we should talk about it for the record. I mean, it has come up before.
Yep.
And I don't know that there's anything new, but I think it should be talked
It's
about.
certainly not new, but
Yeah.
Okay,
Just before, I mean, if you're gonna go into executive and come out and this is the meeting that is coming, I think you've got one of these before, but
Yeah.
on Wednesday night, there is a shared services meeting, select board, everybody. It is being held here, so, it kind of behooves. This is from Wyndham Regional Commission, they're just looking for ways that they can help pull towns together, so that if you need a floodplain administrator, Jamaica doesn't have to have one, and Townsend doesn't have to have one, and Newfoundland, maybe we can all share something. I mean, it's part of their effort to reach out and talk, and try to coordinate some of these things.
that's what I tried to do, how many years ago, remember we tried to get all the select boards together, and
Yeah.
have one
Yeah,
person?
we had a meeting upstairs and we didn't get nothing from it.
Well, get another one, so, there you go.
okay,
Okay,
all
The
right.
old is new again,
some good ideas.
I think it's
No,
wonderful.
we
I
had two,
tried
3
years
meetings at
ago
one time.
to get all the town select boards, one member from each board, didn't work.
It amazes me every year, because we do end up with new board members, and sometimes
Yep.
we do try to reinvent the wheel.
No, I think it's a good thing, yeah, right.
Okay,
So one of the things that they were talking about one time when we got together was, collectively the towns getting together, in other words, like, you need, grader blades, make a big purchase.
I've got 12, I'll be happy to sell anybody greater blades who wants them.
We have,
No, but I say that was one thing we were talking, if you buy half a dozen towns, you know, and so you buy 36 blades or whatever, you get them cheaper than you would 10 blades.
I got a dozen sets. Anyway, I will entertain a motion to find that premature public discussion of civil litigation against the municipality in the case of Derry versus Townshend will put this select board at a substantial disadvantage because the board risks disclosing its defense if the discussion takes place in public.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the motion as read signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I'll get a copy of that, right?
Therefore,
Yeah, it's a different word.
I will entertain a motion to move into executive session under Title I, Section 313A1E to discuss pending civil litigation to which the municipality is a party.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
We're gonna move in at, let's say, 8:57, 58. Are you gonna have a resolution coming up?
We will probably not have any type of resolution coming
Okay,
out.
so we can, okay.